Call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order for October 27th, 2022. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you all for joining us. Before we begin, I'd like to make a quick public service announcement. There is a new trash schedule that starts next week. So check your water bill inserts and you get a new schedule. I guess I wanted to throw that out there so people's trash is not sitting on the side of the road.
And make sure they have the right recycle, because they did update it.
Yeah.
Check the recycling schedule and the trash schedule. Just wanted to throw that out there. All right. We have a motion?
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, John, you made the motion. Who made the second on that? Mr. Desmond? Okay, thank you. Okay, the articles for the special town meeting. I think we're going to take Article 3 first. Get that one out of the way here. I think they went last night. Article 3. Is this microphone on? Anybody know?
Hey, Mark? Yeah, I see it. Mark, could you grab one of those for me?
What, agenda? Yeah,
Oh, never mind, I got it. I'm all set.
you can have one of these.
Article 3, Supplemental Fiscal 2023 School Budget, Chapter 70, State Aid, Expansion of Services to meet the needs of all students with a focus on low-income English language learners and special education students. Article 3, do we have any presentation for this?
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, Madam Chair Gropey, and hello, Dr. Rabb.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We're also joined this evening by Mrs. Katie Pedianokian, the Vice Chair of the School Committee,
Hello, Vice Chair Katie Pina-Anokian.
Fabian Francois Morissette, and
Hello.
Mrs. Christine Suko, our business manager.
Microphone, please.
Oh, sure. Before I begin talking specifically about Article 3, if you'd indulge me a one-moment background just to explain to the committee how we got here. And these remarks will pertain to all three articles. So if I say it now, then we can understand that for all three. Every year, the state provides communities with Chapter 70 school aid, and it typically goes up a little bit every year. The committee is aware of that. The funding is finalized with the state budget in July, and after our budget process is complete, and so the school district receives the funding through a special town meeting in the fall. This is something that we've done in the past and done over several years. The amount of Chapter 70 school aid we receive is based on our spending requirements. For FY23, this school year, instead of a small normal increase, the state recalculated spending requirements for all towns, Stoughton included. And since we've seen an increase in the number of families qualifying for low income, additional English language learners, and additional special education students, our spending requirements were raised by 12%, or $5 million this year. So the state is requiring the schools to spend $5 million more this year in FY23. In order to partially offset the increased spending requirements, the state raised our Chapter 70 school aid by $4 million this year and into the future. That funding is sustainable for next year and years to come. The three articles fully spend the additional Chapter 70 funds, but it's important to note, and it's simple math, they raised our spending requirements $5 million and they reimbursed us $4 million to make up the difference. So we're getting there, but we're not there yet in terms of full funding for the schools, but we certainly appreciate the additional $4 million from the state. So that provides just a little background for all three articles, and that the funding is state school aid that we're talking about this evening. And for every year. And moving forward, money is sustainable in FY24 and 25 and moving forward as well. So to talk about Article 3. The first article provides funding that's critical for all of our students. And many of our students suffered learning loss and social emotional issues during the pandemic. So in addition to maintaining lower class sizes, with this article, students have free transportation and the elimination of athletic and music activity fees. And in this fiscal year, we would be refunding those fees that have already been paid by many families. will bring critical special education resources into the district operating budget and provide long-term sustainability for these positions and the services that they provide. The district will be able to provide additional literacy and math coaches, board-certified behavior analysts for our special education students, as well as needed increases in English language learner teaching and paraprofessional support at all levels. The funding supports needed acceleration academic programs for our neediest learners as they're coping with setbacks, both emotional and educational, from COVID-19. And as I said, these positions and services continue into FY24 as well. So that's a short version of Article 3.
Well, thank you very much. We have any questions from the committee? Chet, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Robb. I'm in favor of this article. This is awesome. I'm glad we're helping out all the students and families with the busing, music, and athletics. It's been a long time. We have the money now. We never had the budget before to do, excuse me, the budget to do that. My question is there a fee for the students to park at the middle school, the high school students?
There is at the high school, yes.
And what is that fee, sir?
I don't know off the top of my head. I want to guess.
I had to pay it. It's $60.
It's $60?
And they secure a spot, and that's their spot for the full year.
Okay, with this Chapter 70 money in the free athletics, music, is that going to affect anything with the students?
Funny you ask. I asked when I had to pay.
No, I'm just saying
no,
because...
it will not.
So
That
they're still
money,
going to pay the $60?
absolutely going to pay the $60 because that goes towards maintenance of the parking lot. So the lines and all of the things that they do in the parking lots, that money is put into that stabilization account so that it can fund any work that needs to be done in the lot.
Okay. I'm just curious. Thank
Yeah, I asked.
you. It had to be asked.
Yeah.
You good, Chet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mark, you have a question?
So if I understood this correctly, this will be going forwards for each year going forwards. As of right now, the state is picking up school lunches. If the state decides not to do that anymore, will that fall under this, and will we continue that program, or should we look into adding this into this program?
No, right now, we would not be including the school lunches into this. If the state does not pick up lunches next year, we would go back to the feed lunches that we had before.
But this is focusing on low income and all of that. Wouldn't that fall under the school lunches or not?
Right now, just shy of half of our students already qualify for free and reduced lunch, so many of those students already have that benefit, even if the state were to stop funding it.
Thank you.
Joel, you have a question?
Thank you. This additional monies, will that cover additional personnel?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
How many personnel are we talking about?
It's several personnel. I don't know the exact number of FTEs.
Well, is it
But it's
100 FTEs or
No.
10 or
8 to 10 total.
8 to 10 FTEs? And in the following fiscal years, will those FTEs continue on?
They're incorporated into our.
They'll be incorporated. Okay, thank you.
Joel, just to clarify, we currently have those FTEs in the schools that are under the ESSER grant. The ESSER grant were funds that we received, and they're staggered. We have 2 different grants that are staggered over 3-year periods. So one of those grants are running out. So this is actually.
That's why I asked the question.
Cover it, yeah.
Okay, we have any other questions? Adam, you have a question?
Just a question about the amounts that'll continue in subsequent years. Doesn't the amount fluctuate from year to year based on the number of students you have and the distribution between elementary, secondary, and then the rates that each of them get? So how is that going to continue in subsequent years?
It does. I would anticipate that it keeps going up from year to year because our enrollment is increasing. We have 100 more students district-wide this year than we did last year. So as our enrollment increases across all levels, all of those categories will go up a little bit each year. So I certainly expect that it will go up a little bit every year. We're not going to see another $4 million increase, but it certainly will go up a little bit.
Okay, Dave, you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Vaughn. Through you. I first have a question for the Madam Chair, Gropey, if she could answer.
Boy.
It's a rhetorical question, so it's
Oh, then I'm not gonna
optional.
answer it.
You don't have to if you don't want. But there was something so ironic. It just hits like.
All right, just hit me with
it. Back in Dr. Rabb's predecessor, Dr. Rizzi, she was here for like 10 years. The 4 to 5 years that I was involved with Finance Committee and discussing the budget, she would always point to the cost per student and how pathetically low Stoughton was as an average, not just in the state, but our surrounding towns. And the number to get to her average, to get to that number, was $4 million. And I couldn't get over like the irony of like, well, she was coming to the town meeting saying, how come we can't get to the average? In reality, it was the state, isn't it? And is it fair to say that, that the town meeting is vindicated from not having given all the $4 million to the schools for all those years in which we were below the average?
That's not rhetorical. I have to answer that. Well, we have inflation, and Dr. Rizzi hasn't been here for now. I think we're going on the fifth year. So I think that the state, they raised the bar, right? As Dr. Rabb mentioned, that 12% increase and where we have to be for the net school spending. She was talking about the per pupil expenditure, and we're still below that, but absolutely. What's interesting is a lot of the things on that wish list that she had produced for FinCom back then were busing, fees, sports, music, all of those things, and providing more ELL. She actually had looked, if she had a crystal ball, which I guess we could say, she probably, guess she did, said that the ELL populations would be increasing in Stoughton, and that's what it's significantly done. I think in particular, we used to have them all in one school, and we had a triennial plan, which we brought forward to you guys, and it shifted to all the elementary schools. And one thing I learned today, which was interesting, is the Wilkins, which was that predominant school at the time, has over doubled the number of ELL students there again, so they're at 78 in an elementary school. So it's just an interesting thing to see that it is happening. I'm glad to see that they gave us more money, but like he had mentioned, the raise in that bar is the $5 million, and the 4 is going to help significantly and get us what we need.
Thank you for that. I just had a small question, but are we coming around with additional questions over time, or did you want each person to just kind of say all their questions?
Well, if you have another question, feel free to ask.
I have a small question. Do you guys have it documented as to where the money will be spent as soon as, I imagine, I don't think Bill Rowe's with us, is he? Oh, he is. How fast does the money hit if they voted on November 28th to give the $3 million into the operating budget? Does it hit right away?
Well, you have to wait 5 days for somebody to file an objection and get petitioned. But after that, then you just increase the budget.
Okay, so do you have it already? Do you already have a budget laid out? Like this is where we're going to put this amount of money into each position, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah.
Is that something you could furnish the Finance Committee?
It's part of the ESSER funding that we had, but also we've been talking publicly about our 24-25 budget, and all that's already rolled into it.
Well, I mean, just for even FY23, which I imagine you're using this money in FY23. Do you have it documented as to how you're going to use it in 23?
We listed it right here in the article. I wanted to make it clear in the article. So
You have a breakdown in the article?
the article lists the different positions that we're going to be talking about, the board-certified behavior analyst, as well as English language learner teachers, paraprofessionals at all levels. We're going to be hiring or continuing special education resources from the ESSER grant and moving them into the operating budget with these funds. So these positions already exist under ESSER, and we're just moving them into the budget
Get them another mic.
as a result.
I'm trying to open the...
What's new is the elimination of the transportation and the athletic fees.
Okay, I'm in the warrant. You're saying it's listed in the warrant?
In the article itself, we listed the different positions that'll be funded.
All right, I'm looking at all right, let me look at this version of it. Go to 3. Okay, so it's more or less a narrative about where you're putting the money, right?
Yep.
But do you have a breakdown of, like, this is the department, this is the amount of money? Do you have it structured as like a new budget? You know, like these
We didn't redo the 23 budget per se. We already have these resources in the system. They're already being paid, but
Right, but this-
ESSER's funding it at this time. So our 24 budget, those folks are rolled into that, and that's what you'll be able to see on paper, each account. But right now, they're already in the 23 budget under ESSER. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
going to shift, and then that's going to free up ESSER funding, and those ESSER funds, that grant, which is ending this year, will be able to be utilized to cover stuff that's going to go away that we didn't add, we're not
Okay.
adding permanently.
Vaughn, can I keep going? Is it okay?
Is it relevant to the article?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything I bring is relative to the warrant.
That would be a discussion for another time, but
So I wrote down the breakdown. You have a total, well, from what I can tell in the Chapter 70 that I've seen, it's $4,909. And then of that, I believe operations is $2,948,500, and capital is $1,059,409. If we're going to get you the money in early December, and there's about 6 to 7 months left in the school year, how much of the $22.9 million will be spent?
All of it, because we would convert the ESSER funding to this funding as soon as it's received.
All right, so, yeah, so this is sort of like a, I just want to make sure I understand the way you take this forward, because you mentioned that this also goes into FY24, the program, is that if you're using 2.9 in 7 months, how would you fund FY24 with the same 2.9 unless you're going to be using the same money that's in capital now? And then even that doesn't get you to what would seem to be almost $6 million.
So we're talking about the 24 budget now? Is that what we're talking
Well,
about?
I'm wondering if you're using all of 2.9 for 7 months, and you have to come up with funding a full year, and you're in the planning of that, I'm sure, then are you truly going to be at $6 million next year, and how would you fund the extra positions for that subsequent budget?
The 2.9 million is actually used over the whole of FY23. We can reimburse spent ESSER 3 funding right now, ESSER funding, and then reallocate that, as Mrs. Gropey said, to other uses.
So ESSER is covering the difference
Right
on that
now.
five months' worth of
Exactly.
operating expense?
For now.
For now. Okay, so if ESSER goes away, where do you come up with the difference?
ESSER is guaranteed through the end of '24, so we have time to do that. But now this is a great opportunity to move that funding from ESSER to the budget.
Right,
now,
but we're not going to be looking at serious budget cuts in the future outgoing years.
No, as a matter of fact, we're not. And what we're planning in FY24 is to take the capital money in Articles 4 and 5 and use that in FY24. So this way, all of the Chapter 70 money is used in FY24, and there's no additional town funding for next
Right.
year.
Okay, so here I'm going to just through you, Vaughn. It's sort of a philosophical question, if I could be allowed to do that.
but let's stay on track, though, right?
It'll be on track. It'll be on track. Also, I keep referring to the predecessor, Dr. Rizzi. Some of the things I learned was that the administration of schools is almost like a three-legged stool. You have the students, you have the curriculum and the programs, for the students. There's the faculty, and then there's buildings. So those are the three areas that you have your laser focus on those three areas. And even inside of this year's warrant for the special, you actually take out a third of the 25% of the available new Chapter 70 and using it for improvements of buildings. So Chapter 70 could be used to fulfill that third leg of buildings beyond that. So would it make sense to keep that $1 million aside for that third leg of taking care of the buildings instead of folding that capital budget into operations. And you know what I mean? Like, why fold that into operations if you can leave that aside for that third responsibility of making a safe learning environment for the students?
We could do that this year and include the buildings in FY23. In FY24, we wanted to use that $1 million to pay for contractual obligations. So our budget moving into '24 is flat, moving forward. And this way, we can use all the Chapter 70 funding in '24.
So through you, Vaughn, how would you cover that?
Let me
capital
stop
in
you
the
for a second
future
here,
years?
Dave. I'm listening to the math here, okay?
Yeah.
And if I understand this correctly, you are asking where they're going to get the other money if 2.9 covers everything after November.
They explained that already.
Right.
Yeah.
But now you're talking about an extra $1 million. Theoretically, that extra $1 million would be available to cover those other months going forward.
Right,
Is
but
that- is-
my point is that there's a responsibility to take care of buildings, and
No, I
they
understand that.
demonstrated that through two of the articles.
I just wanted to
in the-
clarify
that are,
this.
by the way, in the warrant. They're actually articles in the warrant.
I'm familiar with the warrant, but thank you. Okay, continue, Dave.
So with that responsibility, and they now fold capital from this major, injection. I mean, we're talking $40 million over 10 years. We're not talking about just an isolated injection of, oh, isn't this great? We got some grant money in 1 year, and then it's just like a one-time thing. This will be $40 million over 10 years.
Every sheet.
So I just wonder how you're going to take care of the buildings when you have this giant increase. I think it was said 12% increase.
No, that's the table that they're raised for us to have to fund.
To have to fund, okay.
So just to answer you in layman's terms, it would be irresponsible of us if we were to take that money that the state basically changed the calculations to make sure that districts like us, who have a population of low income, high ELLs, high sped students, and all of the COVID learning loss, to say, we're going to take some of that and put it towards buildings. Chapter 70 funds are used towards students' education. I understand what you're trying to say, but these two other articles that we have in here are security articles. They're not building improvement, they're security, because right now, as we all know, in the country, there's a lot going on, and we knew, doing the math, if we were to say November on, what can we fund? It's that 2.9. We took the additional money knowing that we wouldn't cover anything else from November, because we're already up to November. We'd get funded in January. We took that additional money and said, all right, security's a top thing. In our facilities master planning, we knew that that was something we wanted to do, and we have done that over years. In terms of putting cameras on doors, we had locks put on, et cetera. We've come to town meeting over the past 4 years to do that. So this kind of accelerated that. When this gets rolled in, if I may, into the '24 budget, this is going to cover contractual increases, that extra money, and we're going to be coming forward with a flat budget next year. So we're trying to be prudent in how we spend funds and how this money came in and fiscally responsible, and we think that that would hopefully make folks feel comfortable and taxpayers. But looking at this and saying, how did this go? How will this go towards improvements of buildings? We have a stabilization account for that, and we have a really good director of maintenance who manages that account.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I've always admired the schools for taking care of their buildings much
Yeah.
better than every other part of town that I've seen. We own so much property, and
Yeah.
it's all, the Armory, good example.
Oh, dear.
Well, but the point is that while we're folding up this huge increase over time,
Yeah.
and you've accepted, you clearly are reflecting back to me that, yeah, we understand that safety of the students in the buildings that they go to is a critical piece to the whole thing. So I don't have any problem with that. I'm just saying that if we're starving the budget on the building side because we're putting everything into just the ELL and all the wonderful things that the program has to say, are we missing a very important piece in terms of how we're going to be with these, South School coming online within the next couple of
Yeah.
years?
No, I appreciate that. I totally
have
do.
a quick interjection question here. I want to ask this. Dr. Rabb, what is the increase that the state is requiring in spending?
$5 million.
How much more is the state giving in funds.
4 million.
So they are providing 80% of the extra requirement that they're putting on the students, or
Yeah.
or the town to educate the students. So they're essentially coming up with a mandate $1 million short.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just
No,
wanted
and
to clarify
I
that.
just want to just make a statement, because I was one of those ELL kids, I was one of those SPED kids, didn't really speak English at all till second grade. So this is really important, it's extremely important, it's not just ELLs, it's not just SPED, it's not just anything, right? I ran for school committee because I was passionate about the kids, and I wanted to make sure that not only were we funding them and giving all the kids the best education we could, but that as state funding came through, we made sure that it was being spent in the right ways. And I truly support what Dr. Rabb has brought to the table. While Dr. Rizzi did a great job, that was a long time ago, and he was a business manager for a very long time. We've gone through, my background's accounting, we've looked through this, we know what we have to do for buildings, we have a master plan that has been well thought out, and we've approved that, and that's not something that we're looking to put any money towards to change anything. Security is something that you obviously can't guarantee, but we're going to do the best we can given that. But I just, and David, I respect you and I appreciate all this information, but I just want to make sure as an ELL I'm getting, it's just, all these kids are extremely important, and I wish we could put more money into it. I wish that we could have even smaller classrooms. I wish that we could bring more of the SPED kids back and have more SPED programs in Stoughton. Those are things that it's a hope and dream, and with some of this, we're going to be able to do some of that, but I don't know. I just had to make a comment on that.
Yeah, I just had a
So
yeah.
apparently, if you're already $1 million short on the new state requirement, it would be tough to then remove another $1 million for building maintenance from a math standpoint.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Is there going to be a measurement that we could look at where, with everything being obviously depressed after COVID, all the kids, statewide, I mean, it's terrible what happened. But with it being as low as it is, wouldn't it be reasonable to look at money coming in now after everything was, decimated with the kids not being where they should be with the classroom situation, that we can look at a measurement? I'm sure there's measurements around graduation rates, MCAS.
Dave, I'm going to interrupt you here for a second, because that's not super connected to the article, and I want to see if anybody else has any questions on this too.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Okay? I just want to see if anyone else on the committee has anything to say or ask or anything else here. Do we have any other questions or comments from the committee on Article 3? Adam, you have anything? Laura? Eric? Jess, you must have something to ask.
I just have a quick question. It's sort of connected to what Mr. Lurie was just about to get at, which is that, if these funds are geared toward helping to make up some of the loss, I was just curious about your perceptions of where we're at with the town in terms of learning loss as a result of the pandemic.
We're just climbing out of it. We just actually received our MCAS results, and they were much better this year than last year, and we were grateful to see that. And so that's one measure that we use, and we also use daily formative measures with the students as well. So we're looking at that very closely.
Yeah, if you look at, and I know, Jess, you've definitely looked at the state and how Massachusetts always does better than other states in the country, but the numbers went down significantly in districts, significantly. And in Stoughton, we made small gains in most of the elementary schools, but we did significant gains at the Wilkins Elementary, where that principal advocated hard, and she has the highest ELL population. She advocated hard for small classrooms, and even during the pandemic, when we were trying to figure out spacing and all those things it was madness, she fought long and hard, and she got those classroom sizes, and it proved to work, it's public, right? So we can talk about it, yeah. So it jumped significantly, and we know that the Wilkins was always at a lower number, so it's a number in the state, 300 I don't want to, yeah. You do it, you tell them. It's such big news.
It's fantastic. Our students at the Wilkins, they climbed 20 to 30% over last year, and since 2018, they were only at 24%, and now they're at 68%, and it's incredible. And we've seen similar gains, and so it's a wonder.
But that's attributed to everything we want to do with this money to the other schools now. That was kind of like a school that had smaller classroom sizes, and the ELL population was so high that we had more ELL help there. So it kind of makes sense how this is all going down.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I think you just stole Dave's question, though.
No, I had, if everybody's done, I have a question.
John, do you have any questions? Chet, you have any more questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Elliot? Joel, any other questions? No? Mark, anything else? Diane, questions, comments? Bob, you all set? You have anything, John?
I'm all set.
I have a last
You have
question.
any,
A
one
final-
last,
final
wrap this up,
question.
we can move on with this stuff?
Yeah, I wasn't able to see, and the reason I was asking for a breakdown, I was trying to find out about special ed assistant teachers. They don't get regular, from what I understand, they're not in a regular union, they're not in a teachers type union, but they're in some, irrelevant outside of.
I wouldn't use that word, Dave.
Well, they're not part of the school
be you.
system.
Paris,
But-
They're in the union.
They're in
Which union are they in?
The paraprofessional union.
They have their own paraprofessional union now? Back, at least last time I heard, they were only getting below minimum wage or at minimum wage, and then they would get up to maybe
Dave.
several years they'd be up to
Dave,
$19.
is this relevant
Are they-
to Article-
Are they getting an increase from minimum wage?
Dave, is this relevant to Article 3?
It is, because
how is this
they're
relevant to
funding,
Article
they
3?
say they're funding.
We're not getting
ed.
into payroll
They're
tonight.
spending
We
on-
are not getting into the payroll of the school department.
No, I just want to know if they're getting, are they part of the increase? They're hiring people.
Mr. Chair, respectfully through you, I'll just answer them quickly, and then we'll move on, although we don't get into line by line in the budget. We did close, we don't pay under wage. Maybe if you look at the way that the contract would go, if it continued, potentially it could go to that. We have a new contract with them. They're not being paid minimum wage. We make sure that they're paid accordingly, and they wouldn't have approved that contract had it not been paying them minimum wage
All right, so
for
you-
the next 3 years.
All right, so you remedied that problem?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that answer. You got the answer, and that wraps up everyone's questions, comments, Article 3. I don't have any questions or comments. Any questions or comments from the public on Article 3? Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, we're going to go to Article 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You are
Article
very
4 is
welcome.
Very, very simple. At the Daw and the Gibbons School right now, there's only a single entrance. If you've been to those schools, when you're buzzed in, this front door is certainly locked, but when you're buzzed in, you're right into the lobby. And you could go either direction. You could go down the classrooms, you could go down to the main office, you could actually go down into the gym or the cafeteria without easily being stopped. And that's not the current security standard. If you've been at the high school, you know that the current security standard is having a dual entrance. And the other elementary schools have that. The Wilkins has that. The Hanson has that. The Daw and the Gibbons, this will allow us to build a second entrance inside the school. So there'll be no change from the outside. If you drive by the school, you won't see anything different. But because the lobbies are big enough at the Daw and the Gibbons, 10 feet in, we can put a second entrance, 2 double doors. It'll match right up. And this way, if a parent comes in, we have an opportunity to talk to that parent and deal with that situation before they come into the school. And we can put a window similar to the high school so that the secretary can talk to them right there. And this way, if a parent is upset or we need to deal with a situation, the parent is contained in that vestibule area. And that's the current security standard. This article will allow us to build that. And our hope would be that we'd be able to do all of the work in the spring and then do the work over the summertime, actually do the construction work over the summertime.
All right, thank you. Sounds like a great idea. So that's Article 4, School Safety, Security, Dual Entry Improvements at the Daw and Gibbons Elementary Schools. I wanted to be clear. Any questions or comments? Mark, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Looking at the pictures and everything and all that, where you say from the outside of the school, nothing will change visually. I know at the Gibbons, there is a number of students and parents that are in wheelchairs. Once you put in that second door, your second entrance, or whatever you want to call it. For individuals in wheelchairs, if they're at the first set of doors at the street, are not going to necessarily be able to see through everything due to the panels are not glass on the bottom. Are those doors going to be replaced or made more accessible for handicapped individuals?
We weren't planning on replacing the outer doors, but let me take a look at that, because we certainly want to make sure it's accessible and that a wheelchair can come right through both sets of doors.
If you look at the other pictures of all the other examples that you show, like the new high school, it has glass on the bottom, on the outside, and it's basically full glass, so that way individuals can see in. Because I know at the Gibbons, the office is on the left. To get in, you're way over on the right. If there's a panel there and you're sitting there banging on the door, hitting a button, and you're in a wheelchair, they're never going to see you.
No, thank you for bringing that to my attention.
But if there was a clear line of sight all the way through, it would be better to see. And due to security-wise, somebody can't hide on those bottom seals, if you know what I'm talking about. Nobody can hide there for exits.
I do. Thank you for bringing that to my
Just a
attention. Appreciate that.
point of order. All right.
Let me just follow up on that.
Sure.
Just to follow up on that, will you have cameras for the outside doors?
Yes.
So they'll be able to see if there's someone at the door, right? You're going to have a buzzer that they're going to be hitting. So I understand his point. It's a good point. But you will have a camera there, so there is visibility for anybody that's at the door.
Absolutely.
For the office.
Absolutely. It's all
Thank
part of
you.
the article. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Joel?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
First of all, I noticed that it appears that for the different schools, we're using two different architects. One of them is DRA, and the other one is a company called Tedesco. I didn't even know that guy was still working. I thought he retired.
This was just an estimate just to get a sense of
Well, the estimate's based on a set of plans, and apparently somebody has provided those plans. Who paid for that?
We didn't pay for these plans.
You didn't pay for anything?
No, this was just an estimate that we were given, just to get some sense of how much.
So have you selected an architect to do this work?
No, we still have to go through the whole procurement process.
All right, so you're still going to do the procurement, and you're going to have one architect, and they're going to do both projects, okay? So if you're in the outside of the building and in the high school, they have one of those push buttons that you press against and the door automatically opens, so if you're in a wheelchair, you can get in. I didn't see that in the estimate. Are you going to do that?
Let me look into that, Ed. I started thinking about it when Mr. Struck made his comments.
Well, I took a look at the estimate, and I think you're missing a few things. Also, I don't think the amount that you have in there is going to be sufficient, but unfortunately, we won't be able to tell unless we had a more detailed breakdown of the budget, and I could say something about another project, but I won't. Thank you. My other question is so this is all going to be handled through the school department, or is the procurement office going to handle this?
We do our procurement. So Mrs. Husseini does the procurement with our business manager.
I'm a little at a loss as to why you're doing that. We have a very good procurement office who's really got very good expertise in public construction, and they've done small projects for the school department over the past years. Why are you switching that now?
Well, I thought that was the way it was done. Our business manager is an MCPPO and has the expertise.
I'm sorry, what?
Our business manager is an MCPPO and has the expertise.
The procurement officer is an MCPPO. I mean, okay, but I was just curious. So as far as you're concerned, any other small construction projects that go forward that entirely be done by the school department, the procurement office will never, ever have a hand in it?
We've done our own procurement, I know that. So I'm not.
Okay, never mind. Thank you.
Bob, you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, is it the Article 4 and Article 5, the security dual entry, is that the same for both locations? Because the other one indicates security video camera improvements.
The camera improvements, I don't want to jump ahead to the next article, but the camera improvements are for the 5 elementary schools, and they're different cameras. The cameras for the vestibule are part of Article 4, Article 5 is cameras to replace cameras that are, that need to be replaced. When I get into Article 5, I can describe it, but it's a separate set of cameras.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Adam, you have a question? A comment?
Yeah, just a question on the, where it says that both Article 4 and 5 can access the enterprise funds. So why would that be? I'm thinking the water, sewer department, the VNA, Cedar Hill, all that is kind of over there. And then the school department's over here. I don't know why they're funding.
They are not. It's an early article just listed all possible funding sources. When we take a look at the actual motion, that will include Chapter 70 funding. So it'll be clear that it's coming from Chapter 70.
Okay. Can we take enterprise funds out of that article? Out of the article, yeah.
Mr. Rowe, did you want to chime in on this?
Well, it's the motion that determines where the funding is coming from. The article is just the article that's inserted into the warrant. Once it's closed, we can't delete those words. It has to stay as is.
So we will be voting the motion
thank you.
at town meeting.
Right.
And that's what's written here.
Usually the wording is to see if the town will appropriate, transfer from available funds, if any, and or borrow. We don't usually see enterprise funds in an article mentioned as a funding source. So.
Okay, so that'll be dealt with separately.
Yeah, the motion. Do you have the copies? You have copies of the motions? No.
There's no motion yet.
Oh, you need the copies of the motions.
Yeah, we just have this.
They
don't have that.
I believe
they had this,
well,
but I know they
was
wrote
the,
motion because
was
they
that
had
ever
to make
sent
sure
out?
It said Chapter 70 funding specifically.
Bless you.
This
I
was just
received it,
today.
but
They
I
showed.
forget sometimes, I'm on the phone.
Yeah,
I don't have motions.
I apologize.
Can I interrupt just for one moment?
I apologize. In the interest of timing, I just sent it to the, well, I didn't have all your addresses, to be honest. I hadn't updated my contacts, but I sent them to the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary.
Just today, we received draft proposed motions from Mr. Rowe.
Yeah,
And I made sure that was properly stated so that it was coming out of Chapter 70
Point of
funding.
procedure, Mr. Chairman. Could we just make sure tonight that we get the motions and then we can vote? Before we vote, we could at least get a look at them?
Yeah.
'Cause I didn't know they were available, and now that I know.
They just came available
I get it. No, I get it.
yesterday,
but
and Diane,
we
did
could
you
get
send them
those
out?
distributed before we vote.
Diane's going to send them out right now.
Yep, it came at 11 o'clock this morning.
Yeah,
I think it was yesterday, Mr. Chairman, they went out.
Yesterday?
Yep, I'm looking right at it. October 26th, 2:51 p.m. I emailed to Diane. She's going to send them out now, I guess.
And Mr. Rowe clarified for me today that it was properly addressed so that the Chapter 70 funding was the source.
Yeah, Article 4, the proposed, I'll read it right now, that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $600,000 for dual entrance security vestibules, I don't get to say that word very often, at the Daw and Gibbons Elementary Schools, including the addition of a wall with entry doors inside the existing lobby, approximately 10 feet inside the existing doors, a security window to be installed into the office wall, with a transaction window cameras installed on the exterior doors and in the vestibule, along with a dual entry buzzer system, and that to meet this appropriation, $600,000 be raised in the FY 2023 tax levy. That's the proposed motion.
That's fine with me, as long as there's nothing that says the enterprise funds are in there, then that should work. Thank you.
Mr. Rowe, is that, you want to clarify that we're all set with that? It's not going to be funded through enterprise funds?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
The motion's fine. The article is a little overwritten, but the motion is fine.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Article 4? Any questions or comments from the public on Article 4, which is school safety and security dual entry improvements at the Daw and Gibbons Elementary Schools? Hearing none, we will move to Article 5, which which is school safety and security video camera improvements at elementary schools. Dr. Rabb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as I stated, the third article uses the remaining Chapter 70 school funding for needed camera upgrades to maintain safe levels of security in each of the buildings. And here I'm just talking about the elementary schools, the K-5 schools, the high school and the middle school have been upgraded. Current building security camera setups include minimal coverage in common areas, but do not provide full coverage of all spaces. And again, as we've seen current security standards, we want to provide coverage for all the interior spaces as well as some exterior spaces as well. The current camera system at the elementary schools is over 10 years old, and it's time to upgrade some of those cameras and replace some of them. We also need to buy some higher capacity terabyte level servers to make sure that we're storing all of the video that's going to be collected. So the article handles additional cameras as well as server capacity and replacing the aging cameras and installing additional cameras for the K-5 elementary schools.
Well, thank you. Any questions? Dave, you have a question or comment on this?
Yeah, I actually didn't think I was going to have until I listened to Dr. Rabb. Through you to Dr. Rabb. When you store the data, how long do you store it? Do you have a policy about destroying data after X amount of weeks, months, days, whatever?
I believe it's a month.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Adam, you have a question? No? Questions or comments? Mark?
Will these security and safety video camera improvements be including playgrounds at the elementary schools?
As much as we can, yes. We want to do appropriate exterior spaces.
Well, will they be shot from the actual school building, or are we going to install poles and an actual camera at the playgrounds? Because I know a lot of the playgrounds are not right next to the schools. So is there going to be more security over that way, or no?
The cameras that we use now have strong it's called pan, tilt, zoom technology, and so the zooming and the ability to get pretty far, even if it's mounted on the building, is fine. So I've been told that the cameras will be mounted on the building and they should be able to see the playgrounds just fine.
You good with that, Mark? Okay. Any other questions, comments? Article 5? Hearing none. Any questions or comments? Article 5 from the public. School safety and security video camera improvements at elementary schools. Hearing no questions or comments from the public, we will move on. Thank you, Dr. Rabb. Thank you, Madam Chair Gropey.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fabian.
Thank you. Nice.
Katie Pinanoki.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just forwarded that on.
Oh, you just voted? And thank you, Christine. Okay, next on the agenda, we will hop over to Article 1.
Excuse me, Juan, can you tell me, are all these articles going to be moving forward to a town meeting, or do we know if any of them are being dismissed? You know?
There is nothing in Article 6 or 7 at this point, according to Mr. Rowe. I don't know what will happen between now and town meeting. The rest of them are moving forward from what I know.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Article 1, Muddy Pond water treatment improvements.
Is this on? So I can give you a little outline of why I'm here and why we're here about this Muddy Pond situation. Town meeting is required for project costs and approval to participate in the Clean Water Trust borrowing program, the Drinking Water SRF. Other funding choices to design and construct and treat for PFAS at the Muddy Pond water supply source located off of Bay Road. So you say, what is PFAS? Some of you may have by now seen that in other towns and in this town and followed it along. It stands for polyfluoroalkyl substances. It's a long-chain carbon molecule that doesn't break up easily. It stays in the environment a very long time. It's used for the last 70 to 75 years in the production of firefighting foams, non-stick cookware, stain and water-resistant fabrics such as clothing or furniture. These chemicals get released into the environment, the air, the soil, and ultimately the water. And studies indicate preliminarily, they're still ongoing, but that they cause a variety of health risks associated with liver, blood, immune systems, thyroid, and elevated cancer. Regulations. A handful of states across the country have adopted new PFAS regulations. In October 2020, Massachusetts adopted a level of 20 parts per trillion, I should say. The federal government currently does not have a regulation. They have a guidance of 70 parts per trillion. PFAS testing. Stoughton Water Department has tested all of our water supplies monthly for the last year and a half. Thus far, only the Muddy Pond source exceeds the new standard of 20 parts per trillion, and the range has been between 20 and 23, slightly over the standard. Enforcement. As a result of the exceedance, DEP has issued Stoughton a notice of noncompliance for exceedance of the 20 parts per trillion, requiring public notification, short-term planning, long-term planning, submittal to the state DP, alternatives analysis, conceptual design, and financial planning for correction action and schedule. The Drinking Water SRF program is providing a loan opportunity for Stoughton as well as many surrounding towns to address PFAS. In August of 2022, we submitted a PEF, which is a performance evaluation form, to get accepted to the DEP 2023 IUP, which is the intended use plan. It's basically a list. You want to get on that list so to be eligible for drinking water SRF funding. And that's all through the Clean Water Trust. The Drinking Water SRF borrowing highlights are 0% interest loans up to 30 years, 13% environmental justice loan forgiveness, up to 25% for emerging contaminants, in this case PFAS loan forgiveness, and also design costs are allowed to be included in this SRF program. It's usually only construction, but in this case, they're allowing design. The cost estimate is conservatively estimated at 5.6, carrying a heavy contingency due to the current inflation bidding climate. And per the DEP's notice of non-compliance, town meeting approval is required for funding and SRF participation to allow the source to continue operating. With that, I'll open it up to any questions you might have.
Chet, you have a question?
Oh, Ellie can go first if you want.
Okay, Elliot, do you want to go first?
Oh, thank you. I do.
You're very welcome.
In brief, how are they doing the PFAS treatment to remove it? And do you anticipate that 20 parts per trillion number going down in the future, or do you think it's going to be stable for a while? And I'm asking you with a, hope you have a good crystal ball.
Exactly. In general, towns are struggling. I mean, Easton has lost, they haven't lost, they have over 20 parts per trillion in 3 of their wells. Sharon has at least 1 up in the 90s. They're dealing with it. All the surrounding towns are dealing with it. As far as ours, it's surprisingly, and when you're measuring things in parts per trillion, it's there's a lot of zeros in the denominator. It's a very small number, but surprisingly, the results have been pretty consistent. So is there fluctuation? The range they have you test it monthly, but you take a quarterly average. So you take 3 months and average it. That average there has been very consistent. And the range generally has been from 18 to 23. So fairly, 23 parts per trillion. 10 years ago, the laboratory equipment didn't have the capability of measuring that fine, but now it does.
You good with that, Elliot?
Yeah, because I don't think, a long discussion on chemistry, organic chemistry is in order, so thank you.
It would be very educational, though, I'm sure. Chet, you have, Bob, you have a question?
Yeah, Phil, good evening. So 0% interest loan, right? And what do we, as far as the non-compliance is concerned, what's the timeline for that? Is the state coming back to you and saying you need to fix this within a year, 2 years? What's the?
So you might say, why don't they just show up and have us shut the source off, right?
Well, that was the next question, but
yeah.
anyways.
Ultimately, that will happen if we don't keep showing. If they look for you to keep testing, keep showing progress, keep answering their questions as far as planning, long-term, short-term, participating. And when I say these, we have applied for a performance evaluation form. I'm not talking one sheet of paper. It's a document this thick that we submitted. It's been a lot. We have to show a lot of effort. And so with all that effort, we've been allowed to continue to use the source, provide an alternative source if the public has concerns about using, a source that's higher than 20. But in reality, it blends with all the other wells in the system.
Okay, and what's the timeline if this is approved as far as getting that up and running?
There's basically, if we were, by 24, 25, it would be constructed, a 1-year construction period.
Okay. And at the end of this, the 13% and the 25% forgiveness, that's, I'm assuming, at the completion of the project?
Yes.
Okay. Percent. Okay. Those contingencies and inflation supply change, that's a good chunk of change for that project.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if we look at the best case scenario, it could do a lot better than the number I have here, but
okay.
If I go low and it's above that, then we're kind of back to square one, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Laura, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a couple. So forgive my lack of background on this, but what is the potential human impact of Muddy Pond? Is this something that feeds directly into the water source? Do we know of direct human exposure? Just thinking about, the risk to humans, is this something that we know people are getting exposed to, or is this a big puddle in the woods somewhere that people aren't actually getting exposed to?
Yeah, so I'm not a chemist and I'm not a doctor either, I'm an engineer, but they call it an emerging contaminant because all these questions are emerging right as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
The studies are still ongoing. They have hunches about what it impacts, thyroid, blood, and so forth. It's still ongoing. If your direct answer to your direct question is if that's going out onto the water main on Bay Road, you're going to see something, eventually it's going to blend with other sources that are lower than that.
And that's my question, is less about human impact, but more human exposure. Is this stuff that we know is actually working its way into our water sources?
It's been in the system for 75 years.
Okay.
So,
My other question is, it looks like there's quite a bit of variability if you look over the past few years in terms of the parts per trillion increasing and decreasing over those years. Do we know what's influencing or impacting the increase or decrease of those, and why it's not that same impact is being seen in the other sources that are on the?
So no, I don't. I have no idea. If you ask me which of our well sources would have the highest, I would put Muddy Pond at the bottom. It's next to Sharon. There's a lot of open space there. It's not near any industrial areas. I would expect that one to be the best, and it's the worst.
Okay.
I really don't know.
All right. Thank you.
Chet, do you have a question?
Get that thing working. Excuse me. Yeah, I had some questions last night at the committee. According to the chart, we are very high on the PFSA. And the other wells seem to be meeting the safety requirements for the state. I know the well that I was told was, one well was 25 feet deep and the other one was 35 feet deep. I asked about drilling deeper, and there was something about the unknowns, and it wasn't feasible. We do need safe and reliable drinking water. My question is, if this project passes, on this sheet here, it says construction of PFSA treatment facilities, January to June 2025. Okay, that's a long time away. So my question is, what are the plans to address concern of Muddy Pond now, between now and
No plans, just to use the source as we've used for the last 130 years.
So there's really no urgency, what you're saying?
It's not what I'm saying. It's, I go by the DEP's, guidance. They're handling us the same as they're handling the rest of the state, every town,
All right. So if this, say for instance, we didn't do this, which obviously we're going to, and the state comes down and shuts down Muddy Pond, do we have enough water, or do we have to hook up to MWRA?
We'd probably have to increase the use at MWRA. Pratt's has some available volume. We could make some changes over there, which we're into right now, actually. Meaning, what am I saying? We currently pump 150 gallons a minute out of there. We could increase that up to 500 with some changes to the filters in there. So there's options. Do you give up a water source? Never.
I'm not saying.
Never.
Yeah. I mean, worst comes to shove, maybe we have to for a while, but the other question is, we shut off NWRA, right? And then we were doing like a trickling effect in the water, so it wouldn't, if we do have to start up, we won't be wasting thousands and thousands of gallons of water. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Joel, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to compliment the Stoughton Water Department for taking very good care of the Island Street pumping station, which I see out of my window every day. And I want to also thank you for the nice emergency generator so that when you lose power, it goes on at 3 o'clock in the morning and wakes me up. So I appreciate that very much. As for this article, if I can get back to that, Mr. Chairman.
That would be good.
Thank you. Okay. You're going for a loan application, and let's assume that the loan application is approved, and the loan payments are going to be funded to the enterprise fund. Are they going to be funded through a bond, or are they going to be funded? No, well, it's a loan application. How are they going to be paid for? Is it through the enterprise fund? Is that an enterprise fund cost?
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
Okay. And everything else seems to look kind of reasonable. Who's going to be supervising this particular project, this construction? Is that going to be you, Phil, or Mark, or your department, or?
That would be me, yeah.
Okay, all right. Is the procurement office going to help you on this, or?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Eric, you have a question?
Hi. I was a little unclear on the narrative from the engineering firm that had the supporting document, because the article says this is an entirely new facility we'd be buying, but it mentioned the commissioning of one earlier. I don't know the background. So was construction started on a station or treatment facility that got interrupted? Is this really brand new? Are we starting from scratch on this project? Is my first question, I guess.
No, it's an existing. I think I know the language you're talking about.
Okay.
It's more into the operations of a carbon filter plant.
Right. The reason I ask is because, based on the charts you gave us, Goddard's getting kind of close. So how soon are we going to be back here, and are we looking at the same expense in the next year or two when that PFAS level gets up, and then Harris after it?
Yeah, so good question. That's the kind of thing I'm sweating out. I mean, Goddard was really, It was in the 10 to 12 range for months and months and months, and then we got a spike of 22. I don't know where that came from.
Right.
You know, there was a drought this summer. There's theories that when the groundwater table drops, maybe you're skimming off, you know, some water that you're usually not pumping. We were in a level 3 drought for a while there.
Right.
There's a lot of, you guys are asking the questions, crystal ball stuff, you know, that
Of course.
I theorize myself on, you know.
Yeah.
But, so, the cost generally goes with with the volume of water you're treating. In this case, we're talking 400 gallons a minute, so you're going to end up with one size building with one size filter for one size flow. Goddard is much less flow, so it's going to be less. But hopefully we're not back here answering that question.
Thank you.
John, do you have a question?
Couple. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you. And I'm not sure if this is what Eric was bringing up, but we just finished a $1.8 million project at Muddy Pond, right?
It was 3.5 million.
Oh, 3.5.
Yeah.
All right, because the last one I saw was 1.8, but
We added to that, yeah.
how does this tie in with that?
There'll be an adjacent building, physically you're asking? You physically tie
Yeah, I
in?
mean, the two systems tie together, or?
So the Muddy Pond project, it essentially draws water from one site but two sources. There's three drilled wells, new, and then the original from 1892 screen house. So those combine and they go into the building for disinfection and pH adjustment. What we'd have to do is grab that pipe before it goes on the building, reroute it through a granular activated carbon filter, and then back into the way it was. So basically tying it to the pipe and diverting it and then tying it back in.
All right. And even more so if you said the total project was 3.5, because we spent, what, 6 on the water treatment plant on Plain Street, right? Now, I know it was a few years ago.
Yeah.
But I do notice you have a 50% contingency built into this one.
Yeah.
So we feel safe with that, since it's not going to be built until 24 to 25?
No.
And I will reference the other project that somebody else didn't want to, because
I'll beef it up some more if you'd like.
we're getting whacked on that one pretty good. That's already $4 million over. So you're comfortable with the 50%?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
I told you that was going to come back to you.
It's
And you didn't want to ask it, but I will.
What project would you be talking about?
You know which one.
Now, Easton's doing 3 of them for,
They have probably similar to us 7 or 8, drilled groundwater wells, and
but what's their cost on 3 of them? Isn't it like $8.6 million?
I don't know. I just know they're that's what we had.
8.6.
Yeah.
Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. To Yvonne, thank you, Phil. This is good information.
Thanks.
I think my questions are going to sound just like previous speakers, multiple ones, but it's almost the same. They kind of they overlap a lot. But one of the previous speakers talked about, does it change over time to the better? And I looked at 3 of the summary graphs or charts where there was a 23.2 in July of 21, but it dropped all the way to 21.1 in September 21. Like in 3 months, it dropped like 2 points. Then there was another one, it dropped from 21.2 in October 21 down to 18.5 in December of the same year. Just 3 months later, it dropped off 3. Like it could really sway within 3 months by 3, whatever they are, parts per trillion. And then another one was 23 in January of this year, dropped to 20. So another one that dropped by 3 months later in March. So I'm wondering, are we looking at something that really does get kind of worse because it lingers around and it kind of piles up and becomes constantly worse? Or do these wells clean themselves out and over time that they flush out those problems? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So early on, the initial testing, which I'm not even sure, so we started out 18.3, 19.5. We're like, okay, we're up against it, but we're under it. So there wasn't any public notification required. The average was 19.77 there. What they do is as I said, they take a 3-month period and use that as the number they go by. By they, I mean DEP. So you can see Muddy Pond has the most data of all, because we test that most.
I know, yeah. I totally understand why you're here. I totally understand
Even
that.
more than that, we've tested the raw sources, which aren't on this table. I have that, separately. But I was trying to look at the screen house and the 3 individual wells we drilled to see if one or two of those were better, and we could alter the withdrawals to stay under the 20. I mean, we've been trying everything we could think of to try to. But if you look at the 3-month average column, the quarterly average, it's pretty consistent. Again, you're talking about parts per trillion. There's a 20 in the numerator and a 1 with 12 zeros in the denominator. It's a tiny, tiny number. So these numbers to me, they're amazingly consistent. When we first started this, I'm like, 20 parts per trillion. How's a laboratory equipment going to be consistent with this? But it has been.
Okay. Another thing is, I only see 5 wells on the chart. Are there only 5 wells in the town? I thought there were like 6 to 8 of them, or maybe I missed.
Plain Street has 4 wells going to it, so we test them, all together.
Oh, that's on the chart.
Yeah.
I see Plain Street. I see Goddard, Harris, Plain, and Pratt's, other than Muddy Pond. That's the 5. But are those the only 5 we depend on in the town? For our wells, we have 5 total?
Yes, and then MWRA, which they do their own testing. So.
And I did an average of Goddard, Harris, Plain, and Pratt, and it looks like if you averaged all these parts per trillion, Harris looks like the next one in line because it's got 14. Then the next one, Goddard, has 12. Then Pratt's at 9.9, almost 10, and Plain at 7. Do you look at it that way? Like,
yeah,
I'm in trouble with Harris next, and then I'm going to be in trouble with Goddard, then Pratt's. Like, do you look at it that way, or?
Well, if you take Harris, you look at the second column from the right, results for each month. That range there is almost everything is 14, month after month after month. So you might say, well, is that going to inch up towards 20? It hasn't.
Right.
So I can't answer going forward, but if you look at Pratt's, it's you have a 13.3, but all the rest of them, they're pretty darn consistent around 10,
Okay. So a previous speaker also talked about the cost of the different wells around the town. So we see 5.5 or 5.6 that you have on this project. And then you talked about the flow affecting cost?
Yes.
On each, because you have to buy more coal or whatever you have to buy, to filter whatever it is. The
bigger
filter.
or more vessels, and then the housing to house that in the building.
Is there a study yet, maybe not yet, but maybe in the near future, that shows what it would actually take to filter each of the wells over time? Like, do you actually know, oh, this is only going to need this much, this well's never going to need more than this much, et cetera, et cetera? So there's actually like a dollar number you can say, in today's dollars, this is kind of what these wells would cost.
I haven't, but I could do that.
Yeah, because my concern in asking it is that if it's 5.6 on this one, and in simple math, if it was 5 million each, we're looking at another $20 million. And then I wonder, has there ever been any analysis on the cost of MWRA, which another speaker also said, it's, like I said, these questions overlap, but has there been an analysis of cost versus MWRA?
Yes, you're going to pump the brakes on you, I can tell.
Pump the brakes on MWRA, because people seem to think the answer is MWRA. We can't supply ourselves with all MWRA water. In the summer, it can only supply 1/3 of what we need. So no matter what, we need our own water to supplement.
Okay. So we always will
Do you
need
have a
two-thirds of
question,
these
Jess?
wells.
Yeah, sorry, I have to interrupt you, Dave, because I have to run and pick up some children who are waiting for a ride. But I just want to ask one quick question before I have to dash out the door, and I apologize, I have to leave early. I'm wondering if the town has already stopped using, through the fire department, chemicals that produce PFAS, and, have we, when have we, if so, ceased from purchasing and using all things that contribute to the problem?
It's an excellent
I
question.
believe that is underway or has been done. Yeah, why does water end up with this, have to deal with this when we had nothing to do with the causing the problem? It's very frustrating. Yeah.
So maybe when the fire department comes back, we can have a chat.
Ask them that, yeah. I also want to make a reminder announcement that anyone who's speaking, make sure that the mic is on and you're speaking loud enough or close enough to be picked up by SMAC. Someone just handed me a note about this, so I just wanted to mention that. Diane, do you have a question?
Even though a lot of my questions were answered already, I'm going to kind of piggyback through you, Mr. Chairman, on Dave Lurie. Would it be worth it to look at, which one is the next one, Goddard or Harris? I'm sorry, my glasses on. To see, especially right now, if they're offering a 0% loan type thing, to see what additional amounts of money it might be able to combine the two projects together and not be quite as expensive as doing each one separately?
I haven't thought of that.
I mean, I know it's nowhere near, but all of a sudden, if next year you come back and say, oh, we didn't think so, but now it is.
Well, more than that, the regulators seem to be moving the goalposts on us.
Yeah.
When this initially came out, everybody thought the number was going to be between 70 and 100. When it came in, it was 20. Like, if it was 70.
So would it be possible to ask the people who gave you the estimates to include this and see what it would cost?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. The other question I think I would have for Mr. Rowe, through you, Mr. Chairman. So if we borrowed the entire, well, it's pretty close to $6 million, what would that be? And even at 0%, what would that be for debt service?
I think.
And of course, my other question would be, is your enterprise fund going to be able to cover that money?
Yeah, that's what they said.
Yeah. Oh, it would? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I asked that question too.
Okay.
The enterprise funds are covering the money as far as they said.
Well, do we know how much that's going to be every year?
Well, the only thing that the question is whether the enterprise funds are going to go out and bond for it, or whether the enterprise funds are going to take it out of retained earnings or whatever it is that they have. And that's a decision I'm sure that Mr. Rowe is going to make in discussion with you guys, so that'll come up. But even if they go out and bond it, it wouldn't tax the operating budget, it tax the enterprise fund budget, so.
As long as the enterprise fund budget has the money to cover it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I know there have obviously been times when we've had to provide additional money to the enterprise funds to make it go forward. So that might happen, but I don't really see it at this time. I think the enterprise funds are in pretty decent shape.
Through you, would that raise water rates?
So, Bill Rowe, town accountant. The timing of this was pretty good because there was a $4,480,000 loan, which was taken out in 2012. And the final payment on that, $448,000, comes due in '23. So that bond is fully retired. So the first year, initially I thought that we were going to do the whole thing with them, Clean Water Trust, but I guess, some of it's going to have to go out to bid. But 2% for 20 years, it would be $395,000 the first year, as opposed to $448, which is dropped off. So I did do. I had some worksheet which shows the debt service 23 versus 24 for water. Let's see if I can find that. So, let's see.
Mr. Rowe, while
looking
you're
at,
finding that,
yeah.
I'm going to go to Elliot
ahead,
for
yeah,
a
sure.
question. While you find Elliot, you have a question?
Just one or two comments and a quick question. Quick question first is, have you ever tested the MWRA water for the PFAS?
They do their own testing, and they range between 0 and 3.
But you've never done it, right?
No.
Okay. And then you said some of this comes from anti-wrinkle treatment in fabrics. If I drink enough of this, will I stop wrinkling? I'm hoping.
Mark, you want to answer that?
I'm staying away from that one. But there's no wrinkles to fix.
Dave?
Oh, man.
Dave, you have a question?
That's a tough act to follow, but I didn't hear if it was mentioned, maybe I didn't hear it, but did somebody look at the useful life of the stuff we're buying, that if we go 30 years, will it actually last for 30 years? And how much do you have to replenish of the fill or the media or whatever it is?
Yeah, so the useful life, 50 years or more. The carbon has to be regenerated or traded out roughly once a year. So there'd have to be a line item for that added to the operating budget.
Is that actually in the material, the amount of money it is to refill? Maybe I didn't see it.
It's in the initial construction, but changing out the media would end up being in the operating budget.
Yeah, ballpark number? I don't know where I'd find it. It might be in here that I just don't see it.
No, I don't know what it is.
Okay, Mr. Rowe, did you have an answer to that question? The other?
Yeah, so comparing 23 to 24, water, long-term debt service for 23 is $2,321,870, and for 24 it would be $1,989,323. That would be with the addition of the Muddy Pond bond. So $332,000 retirement from 23 to 24. So even. So that's a good thing.
Okay, any other questions, comments on Article 1?
Yeah, I looked up.
Dave.
Yeah, I looked up in the material, and it doesn't. It lumps the. I'll call it medium, the charcoal, whatever it is. That stuff that's going to end up in our operating budget. Could you get that information to us? So because it's not broken out.
Yeah, I don't think it's a huge number. It's 50, 60 grand type of thing.
Okay, thanks.
If you email it over, we'll just send it out to the committee, I guess, so everyone knows what it costs to replace the GAC. Is that what they call it?
Yes.
Any other questions, comments on Article 1, Muddy Pond water treatment improvements? Adam, you have anything? Laura? No? Bob? Chet, anything? No? Mark? John, you have anything else?
Did you say the federal number was 70?
Yes, it's not a regulation, it's just a guidance.
No, it's a guide.
It's a
But the
recommendation.
state went much tighter.
Yes,
But the feds come out with 70 as a guide.
yes.
Thank you.
All right, any other, Mark, you have a question or comment or something?
Yeah, this is just a great opportunity. I think you all know by listening to Phil talk that we are very lucky to have a water superintendent like this. He obviously knows his stuff. He's responsive on top of things, and the public should be listening to this and being like, we are lucky, and feel confident that he's handling this the right way. I can just go out there that we do have the best water superintendent in Massachusetts by far. This guy does not rely on consultants to feed him information. He knows it himself, so we're lucky.
Any other questions, comments? Article 1, Muddy Pond water treatment improvements. Eric, you have something?
Just a comment for John, because I'm aggravated as well that Massachusetts went with 20 if the federal is 70, but if it's any comfort, California is 5. So if we were there, we'd be redoing our entire town. So at least we don't have that.
We'd be MWRA, yes. Okay. Questions or comments from the public? Article 1, Muddy Pond Water Treatment Improvements. Oh,
Okay,
we have one.
Mr. Chairman, just if Phil, you have an opportunity to reach out to the people that gave you this estimate and see.
On the other stations,
Yeah, on the other station.
Yeah, I got it written down.
Okay.
We have a question or comment from the public. If you want to step forward and identify yourself for the record.
Mark Zemanian, Precinct 1. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Most of my questions were actually answered, but when we did the improvements at Muddy Ponds for approximately $3.8 million, was it, a couple of years ago, we knew that this could be a problem. Why wasn't this addressed at that time, or was it just not feasible to address it, Phil?
So the timing, the timing, the construction had started about a year before the regulation came out. In the industry, regulators, water superintendents, other stakeholders, like I said, everybody thought this was going to be in the 70 to 100 range, but nobody had done any testing either. So good question, but this thing got designed, reviewed by the state DEP, and it just, the timing was off.
No, thank you for that answer. I don't remember the acronym, but when you were talking about the 0% loan, whoever that was coming from, over 30 years, did I hear you correctly in saying that we were eligible for loan forgiveness? I know you had talked a little bit about loan forgiveness.
Yes, the 13% I mentioned is guaranteed for environmental justice qualifications, and up to 25% additional for emerging contaminants, PFAS. I say up to, what's the number? I don't know, because it depends on what other towns are requesting in the funds in the SRF program. So we'll get some portion of that, I just don't know what the number is.
So we could get perhaps 25% of it between the 13 and whatever additional.
If I had a guess, and don't hold me, I would say 10 to 15%.
Okay, that's fair. My last question, Mr. Chair, if I might. I had heard that building would be anticipated in years 24 or 25, 2024 or 2025. Given that we've had this problem for a year and a half, and furthermore, from something I heard earlier about funding being available 5 days after town meeting votes, why wouldn't we get on this immediately? I mean, you're talking about a 24 by 50 pad with a couple of 12-foot charcoal filters.
Yeah, well, the intent is to get on as quick as the, there won't be any delays on my part,
No, and I'm not suggesting you would delay. I'm just thinking that's an awful long time to address an emergency, and we know that this special town meeting has been called specifically for emergencies. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Any other questions, comments from the public on this? So as a follow-up to that, we think this might start soon then? I mean...
Well, there's a schedule laid out, and really, it just really is what it takes. The year of 24th, from January 24 to June of 25, it's just, town meeting is the middle of next year, and then there's design and then bidding, and that's just what it is. But
it just we are having a special town meeting, and this was put on the warrant for the special town meeting. So I'm just kind of hearing what a previous speaker had mentioned, and I'm kind of hearing all the talk about PFAS, and it's bad to drink it unless I want to get de-wrinkled or whatever. Just kind of thinking about it a little bit more now. Is there a reason we're waiting till whatever year that is?
No, there's no reason to wait on anything. No, just as soon as it's available, I'll get an engineer designing it and putting it up.
Because it is Article 1 on the special town meeting, so.
Right.
All right. Any other questions, comments from the public? on Article 1? Okay. Hearing none, we will move to Article 2. Can we do 6 and 7? Well, we can, well, we've already announced Article 2. We'll go to Article 2. Article 2, collective bargaining, TPW.
All right, this is an MOA for DPW. This MOA was started by our previous town manager, and I finished it off. There's been a lot of meetings with DPW on this. I can go through each item in the MOA, but the biggest change is obviously there's a grid now that eliminates longevity. So everybody's heard of the Living and Breathing Award from town meeting and all that. Right, so this contract, I think, is the first one that actually does that, where it eliminates the longevity and rolls it into a grid. And the grid is basically, there's 3 years to the grid. Each year goes up by 2%. And then there's longevity steps built into the grid. So the first 4 years, somebody starts off, new employee, they get, if you look at July 1st, 2021 grid on here, they go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 and step 4 each year. And then they stop until they get to up to 5 years. And then they stop until they get to 15 years and 25 years. They still get the 2% each year for the grid going up, but they don't get the step increases. That's handled with the longevity step increases for 15 and 25 years. But there are no more payouts for longevity in this contract. And if you have any other questions on other items within this, I'm certainly able to answer them.
Okay, any questions or comments from the committee on this? Diane, one, okay.
On the first page, sorry, thank you. On the first page under Article 3, number 3, Article 2, it says effective July 1st, 2013. Is that?
Well, I had a question about that, but not that question.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe it might be just a typo.
I believe that that's a reference to the original contract. This is just my opinion. I believe it's a reference to the original contract to 2013.
You took the words out of my mouth, Vaughn.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your words, but it just...
That's what it is, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
But I had a question regarding the same thing. Not that part of it, though. It says effective July 1st, 2013, all new hires shall be required to obtain a CDL within 12 months of hire, and once obtained, must continue to possess a valid CDL as a condition of employment. Does this mean that once someone gets the CDL, that they're not all of a sudden getting a bump in pay because they got the CDL, since now it's a requirement to have it in the first place?
It's a requirement, right. You're not getting a bump to get the CDL. It's part of the
remember
requirements.
correctly, some time back, we had some issue with that. We had to pay money because people got CDLs who didn't have them before. Does anybody else remember that?
I thought it was a requirement, but who actually, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to...
Oh, no problem. Just pull that mic close, Bob.
To further that, who's responsible for that cost as far as acquiring the CDL? Is that assumed?
I believe it's part of the requirement of the person applying for the job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not the town?
We do have counsel here, trying to keep them in the back row over here if possible, but...
Hey, you're paying him, bring him up.
Well, he was heavily involved with this whole contract. I felt it was correct to bring him forward here.
Yeah.
Joe, do you want to come forward and answer any questions?
Exactly.
What's the first question?
Bob, what was your question?
On Article Section 3, all new hires shall be required to obtain a CDL within 12 months. So if I'm hired, and as far as acquiring that CDL, is it assumed that that's their responsibility or the town's responsibility?
So the way, and I'll go back to the previous speaker's
Pull
question.
your mic, Joe. Thank you.
Sure. I'll go back to the previous speaker's question, too, just to put it all in context. So effective as of July 1 of 2013, originally, all new hires were required to have a CDL. okay, and it was to maintain it as a condition of employment. The problem that many cities and towns are running into now, though, is you can't find CDL drivers, right? So what this provision, the change really is building in this 12 months for them to obtain it, so that we're hiring them, but giving them 12 months to get it, maintaining it as a condition of employment once they do obtain it, but sort of giving us a little bit of flexibility in bringing people on board. My understanding, though, it's their responsibility and their expense to obtain the CDL, but we're giving them a 12-month period. I think it's possible, and I can take a look at the contract, we may, as part of existing language, cover like the recertificate, like the annual recertification fee of, what the license fee is. That's possible, but the actual obtaining of the CDL in the class, that's on them.
All right. Well, thank you for that. John, you have a question?
Yeah, since this was a contract and so forth, but nowhere do we see in the motion or anything, what's the cost of this thing? There's no cost given for this MOA.
There's no cost needed for town meeting for FY23.
So it's already built in?
It's coming out of the budget.
So it was built into the budget. Do we know what the cost was for it? You anticipated this going through, so you already put it in.
I don't know if it was anticipated, but I can tell you there's money in the budget to fund the increases for this year.
Okay, I'll rephrase my question. Can you tell me how much money is in the budget to pay for this?
I think Mr. Rowe might have an answer to this. Mr. Rowe, you have an answer to this? He's raising his hand.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The general fund is, I'll round up, $29,116. The sewer fund is $9,544. And the water is $9,518.
What was the general fund, the first one?
$29,116. And that's not a budgetary request, that's all can be absorbed within the department's budgets.
So the funding's already there to cover this?
Funding already there to cover it.
Okay, and the funding out of the general is $29,116. One of the enterprise, the water one, was $95,48.
Sewer is $95,44.
$95,44.
And water is $95,18.
Okay. And there's already the money in the budget to cover all this?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. John, did you want to continue? I just wanted to have Rowe in.
John, if I could just continue to explain that. For example, when Paul's position wasn't funded, it's still currently, it's funded, not filled, so there's extra money in the budget from that purpose to fund this. So it wasn't built in just to fund this, there's just a position there that's been open and
You're talking
filled.
Paul's old position?
Old position.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on Article 2 from the committee? Nothing, okay. Any questions or comments from the public on Article 2, the DPW contract? Oh, John, you have another one?
Just the wording, when they talk, when you give your charts and what they are, and they indicate that, like, effective July 1st, 2022, the increase FY 2022 rates by 2%, and you added the 3 new steps. And it says employees who are being paid at a rate that does not appear in the table shall have their rate increased by 2% as well. Is that because you have people that don't fall on this grid, and so that they will get it? So it was just isolating that people that were already off the grid, shall we say, are covered that way?
I believe that's the case, yeah.
So this would be more as people are coming in, they'd be in this, and
Yes,
that goes through for all of FY,
Yes, if you recall, there was a previous grid that had a lot of steps and prior agreements. People were being paid a quote-unquote personal rate, and you had people off the grid. And so one of the things that the former town manager was trying to do was to get back to a more traditional grid, wage grid, but you still had a bunch of folks that are sitting outside of what these rates would be, and so the language is intended to make sure that they're still getting a COLA, they're still getting the benefit of these things, even though they don't appear on here. But going forward, new employees and a lot of your existing employees will be on this grid and following this pattern.
Right, I just wanted to make sure I was reading it correctly.
You are, yeah.
Surprising.
Any other questions from the public on
I just
this?
had one other one.
Bob, you have a question?
And as far as the longevity is concerned, is that paid out at the beginning of the year?
So typically, it's paid, for this group, I'm not sure if it's paid in July or if it's paid in November, but in either case, you're talking about the existing benefit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the longevity for 22. I see some of these amounts.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick because I think Mr. Rowe has an answer.
Oh, okay.
So the contract says it has to be paid out by the first payroll in December.
All right.
Most of the contracts read the same way, so.
December, yep.
December, yeah.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Up and down the plane,
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Collective bargaining, DPW? Any questions or comments from the public? Collective bargaining, DPW? I have one last question. There's a list, progressive disciplinary procedure we bypass for, but not limited to the following: insubordination, theft of town or another employee's property, falsification of time records, imbibing alcohol on the job, use of an illegal substance on the job, fighting while on the job, and disclosure of confidential matters. What is confidential matters?
So this language actually came from the personnel bylaw. It's a derivative of that. So the former town manager indicated that was comfortable putting in basically what was already in your bylaw. Now, I was not party to the drafting of that, so I can't speak to that. That came a couple town managers ago when that bylaw was put into effect. But I think it was designed to be a sort of a catch-all for a variety of different positions. So for example, looking at your personnel bylaw, if we're dealing with confidential matters, it would be, let's say, somebody in a human resources position or something where somebody's in a finance department that has access to what would normally be confidential information and disclosing that. For DPW folks, I'm not sure it's going to have much application for them.
That's what I was wondering.
But theoretically, if somebody was aware of, let's say, somebody's medical conditions as a supervisor of somebody, it could come up in that context.
The new trash collection schedule does not fall into the category of confidential matters.
It would not, no.
I wanted to throw that out there so the public's aware there's a new trash collection schedule. Okay. So this really doesn't apply that much in this case?
No, it likely will not have much of an application, but in theory it could, depending on the circumstance.
All right, great, thank you. I just noticed it because there was a quotation mark at the end for no real reason. Any other questions or comments from the public or the committee on Article 2, collective bargaining, DPW? Hearing none, we will move to Article 6. Article 6, supplemental fiscal year 2023 departmental budgets. This is not good.
This isn't good. So for the new members, this is just an opportunity to increase or reduce budgets for the current fiscal year. At this time, we have no changes requested, so I would recommend a vote of refer to town meeting.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rowe. Any questions or comments from the committee on Article 6, supplemental fiscal year 2023 departmental budgets? Hearing none. Any questions or comments?
Because this went to a question earlier. At this point, you're not anticipating withdrawing either one of these, right, 6 or 7? You would wait till
I
that
think you have to
night.
wait till town meeting,
You're
and
gonna wait till that
then
night
he would
just to-
dismiss them, yes, if we don't have anything, yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the committee? Article 6, supplemental fiscal year 2023 departmental budgets. Hearing none. Any questions or comments? Dave, you do have a question or comment.
Yeah, am I allowed to ask a question about the revenue sheet that came out?
No.
Or is that off limits?
I don't see the connection between Article 6
No,
and that, but I mean,
We have Bill sitting, he walked up to the front, so I thought I'd ask now, but we can save it.
okay, Article 6. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Supplemental fiscal year 2023 departmental budgets. John, you have any questions or no? Chat? No? Okay. Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public on Article 6, supplemental fiscal year 2023 departmental budgets? Hearing none, we'll move to Article 7, unpaid bills. Mr. Rowe?
So for the new members, any bill that comes in after, unexpected bill that comes in after the books are closed, that has to be voted on by that has to be presented to town meeting and requires a 9/10 vote of the body before it can be paid. At this time, we have no unpaid bills, Mr. Chairman. I would recommend a vote of refer to town meeting.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Rowe. Any questions or comments from the committee on Article 7, unpaid bills?
So that would
Sure,
be
Adam.
for FY '22 expenses? Or-
FY20, FY 20, well, if something, the books are not closed yet for 22, so if something popped up now, I'd be able to encumber it. But fiscal 21 and prior, and fiscal 22, by the time we get to town meeting, fiscal 22 and prior would need to be voted by town meeting before it could be paid, so.
Gotcha.
I do know that Mr. Rowe did make a huge effort reaching out to the departments in closing out the 2022 to make sure everybody got their bills in time to be paid so that we wouldn't have anything. And he said something along the lines of, because Finance Committee's not going to want to have unpaid bills and have a bunch of questions.
Yeah, and it's gotten better since we've instituted the purchase order system, because we try to drill it into people that before you do the work, you got to put in a requisition, you got to wait for the PO. So you got to hit the keyboard before you pick up the phone. So it's gotten better.
Okay. Questions or comments from the committee, Article 7, unpaid bills? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public on Article 7, unpaid bills? Hearing none, we will move to Article 8, Walnut Street traffic safety improvements. Thank you very much, Mr. Rowe.
Oh, no problem.
Mr. Chairman, I think we should invite Mr. Rowe back all the time if he has all that good news for us.
He always has an open invitation.
I kind of like the virtual, especially when you're an hour away.
Are we on 8?
Oh, okay, cool.
Are we on 8 right now?
Article 8,
Article 8? Okay.
Walnut Street traffic safety improvements.
All right. All right, so Article 8, the crux of Article 8 is funding improvements to Walnut Street that control speed of vehicles on Walnut Street. That's essentially the goal of it. This was a directive of the Select Board to come up with improvements to Walnut Street, cost-effective improvements to Walnut Street to slow the speed of vehicles down, all vehicles, trucks, cars, on Walnut Street. Many residents on Walnut Street, I want to say at least 5 to 10 different ones, have called Select Board members, myself, many times about cars speeding on Walnut Street. More cars are using Walnut Street now that we signalize Walnut Street. Most likely, that might be part of the case, so they see the increase in volume, so now they're noticing the speeding much more because there's more cars to see speeding. The good thing is signalizing Walnut Street at Park Street made that intersection much safer. There's pedestrian crosswalks in that area. We have a library. It was an intersection that had high crash ratios, things of that nature. So it certainly served its purpose. It was a huge improvement to the whole corridor. What improvements, what we're proposing for improvements on Walnut Street are bump outs. There's a one bump out near Pierce Street. So essentially what we're doing is physically narrowing the road down to create a bump out. And we're doing it right at the crosswalk, which serves a dual purpose. Pedestrians will have less distance to walk across the street where the bump out is. So less distance is good. At that bump out, we will be doing one of those rapid rectangular flashing beacons like we have in the square. So when you push the button, pedestrians are able to walk across, and cars slow down, they see that. Other measures that we're implementing are pretty much striping. I know it sounds like it doesn't do much, but striping does a lot. We're actually narrowing the lanes down from, I believe, 12 feet to 10.5 feet wide, and creating bike lanes in that corridor, as that Complete Streets policy does. The bike lanes were created because we narrowed the lanes to slow the traffic, and we had extra area, and it was a great spot to put the bike lanes in to comply with our Complete Streets policy. The project wasn't to put bike lanes in Walnut Street, so I just want to make that clear. So the whole corridor now is multimodal, so you got bikes, cars, and pedestrians can easily traverse that whole corridor, which is the goal of any street improvement project. I try to give an example. Some people question the striping, how that can actually slow vehicles down. It gives the impression that the road is narrowing. People do slow down. There's tons of engineering studies that prove this. Also, when you go on, when you drive by a construction project on, say, Route 24 or whatever, and they put the Jersey barriers close to the travel lanes, do you speed up? Do you stay the same speed, or do you slow down? It's the same effect. People slow down when the road appears to be narrower. And obviously, the bump out is a physical narrowing of the road. At the bump out, we'll also be doing, it's not shown on this plan, this came afterwards, is a speed table, speed hump. It's a wide speed bump. It's going to be the first of its kind in Stoughton that I'm aware of in a major road. It's a prototype we're trying. Everybody comes up to the engineering department and wants speed bumps on their roads. So we're trying it out on Walnut Street. It's a good spot for it, in my opinion, at a crosswalk location. We're looking to reduce speed, so we're putting a speed table there. You know what? If the speed table don't work and people have problems, it's easy to remove speed tables.
Where was that going to be, Mac?
Right at Pierce Street, where that crosswalk is. There's also going to be dynamic feedback signs, speed feedback signs. You've probably seen them when you're driving down. You go above the speed limit, they start flashing, and everybody thinks that they're submitting a report to the police department. But essentially, cars slow down. Most of them. Some of them play games with it, and they speed up, right? But we're trying to.
As far as that dynamic feedback thing, I've seen it in other states, not around here, but when you drive the speed limit, you get like a smiley face.
Yeah.
No, really? Yeah, I've never seen it in Massachusetts.
Are you requesting us to look at? Would you like the smiley face version of this? Okay.
I'm just mentioning. I'm just saying I saw it in other places. You don't see it here.
And they also give you a frowny face if you're going too fast.
Yeah,
I was driving recently with one of my kids, and they said, "Dad, if you go in the speed limit, why doesn't it give you the smiley face like the other thing?" I go, "It's Stoughton, I guess. I don't know."
Isn't there a statistic of finance committee members smashing into smiley faces?
Oh boy,
I think there is.
I've never heard of that. Anyway, Mark, you can continue. I'm sorry, I wanted to interrupt the button.
Another improvement we're doing here, which we've actually done on Island Street, which from what I've heard is working out pretty well, is the establishment of a safety zone, which is now allowed by the new MUTCD regulations, where you can establish a safety zone. It's enforceable by a police department. You have to meet certain criteria for that to happen. Having a school there, a park, a library, things like that allow you to establish a safety zone here. water pump stations, wherever there's potential for a lot of people to either be on the roads, on the shoulders, gather in the area, you can establish safety zones. This will be 20 miles an hour, this area. It's enforceable. There'll be signs throughout the corridor posted for that. So I'm just seeing if I missed any other improvements. I think that's about it. So essentially striping, bump outs, crosswalks. We're rebuilding a couple ADA ramps to make those compliant, but they have nothing to do with speed control. And that's about it. Any questions?
Okay, we have any questions or comments? You want to go first, or John?
Why not? I'm tired of going last. Mark, did they look, I know I've seen it in other towns where they had a similar issue with people speeding, it was very residential and so forth. And they put little islands in the middle of the street, same reason. And they do like 3 in a row, you'd have the safety area, the safe space for people crossing, and they'd spread out like 3 of them. Mm-hmm. And that was the purpose, was to narrow the road, and in people's minds, they see this. And I didn't know if that had been looked at all, or if it's a similar principle with the bump outs. It's just making it, visually, it looks like you're closing in.
Right, so they're doing the opposite of what we're doing with the bump out, the curb bump out.
They actually put an island in the middle, yeah.
The islands are great. I mean, depending on how you
makes it tougher to plow.
Plowing, maintenance issues. You try landscaping those things, nothing ever works because it's in the middle of the road and the salt kills it. So we're trying the standard bump out right now.
All right. And the only other question I had, I know they were looking at, I know the board was looking at trying to see about getting this as restricting the trucks and so forth. Are they still moving forward with that? Or?
Phenomenal question. So this, like I started off, I was clear that this only is for speed control, these improvements. Trucks will still be going down the road.
Right. No, but I mean, are they still moving forward with that?
Right. So I've actually already had discussions with our consultants and a DOT person about a truck exclusion on Walnut Street. First of all, you have to meet the criteria of the percentage of trucks on the road. We meet that criteria very heavily. I think the requirement is 5%, and we're at 13%. So you got the checkbox to continue conversations with DOT. And then you have to have a reasonable alternative plan. And that's Pandora's box right there. It's got to be, you can't reroute cars 5 miles off track and to get them to the same point, right? It's got to be reasonable. The only reasonable one in my mind on this would be going down Lincoln Street. And I'll backtrack. Going down Lincoln Street, you can take a left and right, and you're coming on to 138. Is it great? No. We all know that's a horrible intersection as it is. But you can take a left and right. If you went down 139, you only take a right. You can't take a left through the square. Or you could go down Seaver Street, right? And nobody's going to do that. So what they'll most likely require you to is restrict Seaver Street, Walnut Street, and all the little streets in between. And then Lincoln Street becomes that. I just don't, I want to think positive that they would approve something like that, but my gut tells me no. So I don't know if the truck exclusion is going to get approved or not,
But they are looking into that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that might push you to try and get a light at Lincoln, huh?
Yeah. Well,
thank you.
Eric, you have a question?
I do. I was just curious what guides the placement of the striping.
What guides?
Kind of like how you choose. I'm asking for a selfish reason. I should just go ahead and say that. I live at 111 Walnut Street.
Okay, yep.
And often cross Walnut to Capon.
Yep.
So I'm just curious, is it like too close to the other ones? Like too close to the intersection and then the Pierce Street striping to throw a stripe there too? Is it not worth it? I'm honestly just curious.
I'm not sure I actually understand your question.
Well, so right now there's not in the plan, there wouldn't be striping from Walnut to Capon. So I'm just curious why that's a spot that would not get it as opposed to Pierce Street across Walnut. Does that make sense?
I got your question. Yeah, so this goes all the way to Prospect Street, the striping.
Okay.
So what you have was a PowerPoint to the selectmen that it clipped out one part of the plan. Mm-hmm. You can actually have this if you want. Actually,
You should have the second copy,
the
though,
plan,
too.
right?
No, I've got it.
Yeah, there's a second copy that has the full blowout
I have
plan.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
So the striping goes all the way up there.
I was just saying, like, right here.
Oh, you're talking about crosswalk.
Yeah. Am I using the wrong term? I must be using the wrong term. I apologize. A crosswalk. That could have been so simple.
No, that's fine. No, I thought you meant the striping in the road, and you're
Oh, my
referring to...
bad. I was
So
talking
you're
about
talking
the
about
crosswalk.
crosswalks, you're talking about striping.
I'm a smart guy.
He's
Right.
talking about the crosswalks.
The crosswalk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was. I apologize.
I mean, we had discussions with, the police department, different individuals in town, the residents, some of the residents, obviously not you, but some of the residents in that area.
What do I serve on this committee?
I know, well, you said Walnut Street, I'm like, no kidding. So, and that was not an area where they see pedestrians crossing that often. I'm sure it does happen, but knowing that there's actually a defined area in Walnut Street, which I don't think there even was up until about a couple years ago, correct me if I'm wrong, with the rapid rectangular flashing beacons, that's where they'll travel to, either there or they'll go down to the signalized intersection down the street. You can cross at your own risk over there, obviously, but if I have children or somebody, myself, I would choose either direction to cross. The thing about these rapid rectangular flashing beacons is you don't want to stop popping them in everywhere either. You don't want to, in other words, every intersection, you don't put a rapid rectangular flashing beacon because people, it's not the best way to handle it, it's just an alternative. If you push the button, a lot of people are used to signalized intersections where they push the button and they start walking, right? This isn't the case. There's no red light popping up, stopping the cars from stopping. You have to make sure the cars are slowing down as a pedestrian in these, and then cross. So it's not something you want to be popping around everywhere, and you try to space them out accordingly.
Any other questions? Mark, you have a question?
Yes, I actually have two. So this is to slow down the traffic on Walnut Street?
Correct.
Mark, can you pull the mic a little bit closer so everyone at home can hear you?
This is to slow down the traffic on Walnut Street?
Correct.
Do we have an agency currently that could help with slowing down the traffic on Walnut Street?
An agency?
Or a department?
Right now, the posted speed limit is 30 miles an hour. If I'm trying to track what you're saying here, probably could the police department enforce the speed limit on Walnut Street right now? That's probably where you're going, right?
Yeah. Could they enforce the speed limit on that?
Yeah, and the speed limit's still 30, which is relatively high. We're going down to 20. So obviously you got that 5 mile per hour, the people kind of let you go type of thing, right? So 30 becomes 35 and maybe 37, is good. But the 85th percentile on that road is 37 miles an hour. So to have it at 20 miles an hour, now you're down to a whole nother 10 miles an hour, which is going to force cars. If you're going 35, 40 miles an hour at that point, the police are going to pull you over.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, in theory, on all our neighborhoods that we have in town, what is the posted speed limit or unposted speed limit?
I'd have to look at each area is different, I believe.
If it's unposted, it's different? Or
If it's unposted, then it doesn't actually have a speed limit, I guess. Is there a state requirement? Is it 25 miles an hour, maybe?
I think there's a fundamental speed law.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it.
Just
to be
like
honest with
30
you.
miles an hour.
Yeah, 30.
Okay.
There you go. You're teaching me something. There you go.
My second question would be for the school that is there. I know it's also the superintendent's building and everything and all that.
That's the Jones School?
What's coming through the mic? I can hear it through the mic. Is there a plan, like at the Wilkins School, to improve drop-off, pickup at the school on Walnut?
The schools were involved in these discussions. I think last night when we were in front of the standing committees, Dr. Rob stood up and they feel like they've improved the drop-off substantially at that location. I guess it used to actually be on the road at Walnut Street, because that question came up. It's no longer on the road. People don't stop on Walnut Street. I guess it's in the back now. They didn't have concerns with this plan affecting their drop-off routine.
Okay. Because I used to drop off there, and we used to park on Walnut. That's why I was wondering.
Yep.
Okay.
Elliot, you have a question? Elliot had his hand up before, Joel.
Yeah, I do. Well, this is mostly on alternative two. You got two of them there. The ones that says 181, 435. I'm looking at this bump out almost directly across from Pierce Street, and it's going right into the bicycle lane. Now, I'm fairly familiar with the roads and bicyclists on it, and I wish them all the power in the world. But if you're going to have a bump out in the middle of a bicycle lane, what they're going to do is come down there and dart right out in front of the travel lanes, which will put the fear of God in the cyclists and probably the guy in the driver's seat like me. I don't think alternative two with that bump out right across from Pierce Street is such a grand idea. The other ones seem to be a good deal more reasonable.
So this bump out is designed to accommodate bikes. There's actually 2 special ramps, and there'll be proper signage to accommodate bikes. There's actually a note on the plan. Let's see here. Install ramp up for bikes to crossing curb extension, and it's going to be a defined ramp.
It's not going to be a launch ramp then.
Well, I don't know. It's a matter of opinion, I guess, right? Depends how fast you bicycle, I guess.
All right. Thank you.
Joel, you have a question?
Yes, and Elliot, as a recreational bicyclist, I can tell you that I particularly avoid Walnut Street, just to let you know. I have 2 questions. The first question is, how will this be funded? Is this a bond funding, or are you going to be using some other source of funding?
This is currently be taken out of free cash.
Free cash?
Yeah.
Okay. And the second question is, why is this an article before the special town meeting? Why don't you do it before the annual town meeting when you have all your other little road projects done, so we can take a look at everything at the same time?
I'm not going to speak for the selectmen, but
thank you.
This is, but I'll give you my opinion, if that's okay.
Sure.
It is a public safety issue. There's speeding of vehicles. There's a lot of people walking on streets. There's a library. There's a park there. There was Stoughton Day where a lot of people.
Well, I'm not denying that it's needed. My question is, why do we want to do it now, and why not wait until annual town meeting?
But why not get a head start? So we're going to be taking these plans to a next level. So over the winter, we can actually build these plans to have specifications that can be bid out. We're not going to waste time doing that. So we'll be ready in the spring to build this project, as opposed to having to wait till the end of next summer to build it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Diane, did you have a question?
Okay, for true transparency, I work on Walnut Street, and it is a nightmare some days. Number one, coming up Walnut Street, in other words, taking the turn or coming across at the library, are there not going to be any parking spaces on the right-hand side? Trying to get by that in the morning if there's a truck coming the other way?
Yeah, there's no more parking spaces.
No more parking spaces. Yep. Okay. I think I like Joel. I'm not very fond of having a bike path on this street. I think right now it's too fast. If you guys decide to eliminate trucks off this road, I think that would be a great time to put, leave the space, but just don't put the bike path in there now. I'm just afraid, like I was when they went out on Central Street, and I think you and I talked about that the kids see it and go, oh, yeah, bike path, no big deal. Well, that's all well and good, except for an 18-wheeler coming down the street. And they do, The last thing about the flashing lights, as my friend Mark just said, there's a school there. Why don't we just put a school zone which flashes 20 miles an hour, and it can do it 4 times a day when the kids are being dropped off, even though they do now come in through Park Street, come up the back way by the old Kimball School, they still go out that way. So having that there would not be any question about whether to put any kind of other signs. I think in front of the the Wilkins and the Hanson, they go off 4 times a day, I believe. In the morning, and then at noontime, and then in the afternoon when the kids are. That to me would be the best way.
I will certainly, because you've mentioned it in another location too,
Yeah.
look into the requirements for school zones.
But it is a school street, so.
Yeah, I mean, we'll look into the requirements for school zones.
Well, there's a school right there.
We've
so-
got,
That's what I mean, but there's no, as Mark and I just discussed at the beginning of this meeting, there are no school zone signs there at all.
I mean, we bring in these different various departments to have these kind of comments when we're coming up with plans like this. So this is the first time I actually hear of that's a possible concern. That's something we can always add in at any point in time.
Right.
We'll look into it.
Yep. Add it for the high school too, please. Thank you.
Well, the 20
If Jeff-
mile an hour is what you'd get in a school zone, but you should still have the signs up saying it's a school.
Yeah, you could just
Yeah,
throw a
it's
school
kind of
zone
get a
sign.
double layer of protection there. Yeah.
Could have done that a year ago and avoided all this, but, Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, it actually made me start to think, to the previous speaker, Diane, when you said about the school zone, and the Jones School is a school that's used as an administrative building, but there's children, I think. Is that year-round or summer school? Like, what is that?
Oh, yeah, there's summer school that goes.
There's summer school with kids, actually, but during the regular days throughout the year, it's an administrative building.
No, no. No. There's
It's pre-K in the,
50 kids that go to pre.
oh, there are, so it's a pre-K school. No, okay, I just want to make sure I understood what you were talking about.
Don't try and go there at 8:30 in the morning.
Oh, I totally understand now, all right. But my question to the town manager is just a small question. I heard the whole thing with the presentation of the select board, and they were pushing about the speed bumps.
Yeah.
And the first thing that came to mind is that we do a lot of plowing. How do you protect these speed bumps if these plows are just going up and down all day long trying to keep the thing, are they really easy to plow around those things?
I mean, a speed table is different than this classic speed bump that you see. If you had a speed bump, yeah, I mean, you're wiping those things out. They're very gradual and wide. There's actually a road when I go to my friend's house in Walpole. It's a quiet road, they call it, or something. There's speed tables almost every 500 feet. It's right near Patriots Place. I can't think of the name of the
Mark, I
road.
don't want to interrupt you, but is that what they have at the high school when you come in by the football field at the bottom? Is that a speed table?
I think they have them going down to the
I don't
Home
recall
Depot.
what that is. Yeah.
Yeah, Stockwell Drive has them.
Yeah, down to Home Depot going to
They have 2 of them
IKEA.
down there.
Don't make me wrong. You probably, if you're plowing at 30 miles an hour, you probably want to slow down a little bit when you come to these things. But they shouldn't impact the plow at all.
They should ride up.
Yeah.
Okay, we have any other questions?
That's a good sample of it.
Chet, you have a question?
Yes. This study that you done for us, who's the one that brought that up? Because I've been watching select board meetings and look at the meeting minutes and things like that, but all I've ever heard is about truck exclusion and speed bumps and things like that, but never until I saw this. I mean, when did this come up and who approved it?
It was a directive of the select board to come up with a plan.
I mean, what meeting was that? Because I checked the meeting minutes all the way back to September.
There was a public hearing on this.
There was?
Yeah, recently.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, because the last one I saw was the 18th of October.
Yeah. Yeah, that might have been the most recent one.
But they talked about, made a motion and made a motion and voted to go to Mass DOT for truck exclusion, in which everybody was saying that it might not go because of all the difficulties between Seaver Street, all these areas down there. But my point is, if this does go through, Okay, how long would it be before, we can get the money and get this thing started? Do we have to go out to bid? Do we have to get more design plans, things like that?
Right, so after town meeting, assuming town meeting approves the funding for this, we're going to take these plans, that they're sort of conceptual in nature, right? You can't really build a project from this. We're going to bring them to that next level where we can go out the bid for this project. Obviously, preparing those plans takes time. That will go through the winter, and we'll be ready to bid it early spring or even before that.
Okay.
So.
I noticed that, I remember that you mentioned about a trowel speed hump that you were thinking about putting on Walnut Street.
Yeah.
Is there any way that we can speed that up before this project goes through, if it goes through, to put one up on Chestnut Street and at Pierce Street until we can get the signalization and everything else that you're looking for in this plan? It's just asphalt going down on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, you have to grind the existing pavement a certain way. Then
but to adhere to it, yes, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's...
Well, what we're going to do is I've had a meeting even today on Walnut Street to maybe try to come up with some temporary measures before the winter, that being to slow traffic down. We did not discuss the speed hump, but where the bump out is possibly putting some like Jersey barriers there, so people are getting trained and familiar with it. We were thinking about barrels. Obviously, those can get plowed over, so Jersey barriers will certainly be a more structural, it's a better way to define the road than barrels. So we're going to actually do Jersey barriers at that bump out. We're not going to be doing the speed hump.
Okay. So that's, you're not going to do that? You're not going to
We'll be doing the speed hump, just not right now.
We have any other questions, comments? John, you have a question?
I'm just kind of concerned. This is the second time now we've seen a special town meeting trying to already get into the free cash. We're not even halfway through the year. And I know Mr. Rowe gave us a write-up today that said he's anticipating, $3 million, and it may be certified before town meeting. What if it's not? You're still looking to spend it out of free cash, and you got to wait for it to be certified? Bill?
I'll give you my opinion, though. I don't think if free cash is certified, if it's not certified at that point, how would you fund it out of free cash, right? So I'll let it.
Well, first of all, let me just say, last year we had the same issue. This committee said, we're not going to recommend an item because you're asking for $300,000 out of free cash, which had not been certified yet. So when you close your books, you submit your balance sheet to the state for DOR certification, there's a question. And the question says, do you have an article coming up at a town meeting which is funded from free cash? If you put down yes and the date of the meeting, they move you to the head of the line. If you don't do that, you go to the back of the line. So there's a good chance that we would not have our certification until February if we do not check that box.
Just in time for town meeting.
Yeah, and I don't think most of the stakeholders in town would like the free cash number in February, particularly the select board.
I'm going to chime in a little bit on
so
this.
So that's, if by some chance it wouldn't be satisfied, we've got money in the tax levy. We could fund it out of the tax levy just like we did with the cameras and the security systems, security renovations.
Well, my point was, I'm getting concerned that we're trying to spend this money before it's even certified. I know it's only a small portion.
I understand, yeah,
but this is the second time now in the number of years I've been involved with the town.
Yeah.
That they're trying to do this. I mean, they did it for the trash truck.
Yep.
You know, which this committee voted against, and, you know, obviously it didn't carry, but
Yeah.
I'm just getting concerned with all of a sudden, things are
Oh,
coming
sure.
up
Oh,
that we
sure.
want to do it, and you're trying to do it at a special.
The reality is, come November 15th, the DOR field reps, who are, by the way, are all working from home still, so they're still backed up, they shift over to tax rates. Free cash sits on the table. Unless, if I tell them we've got a free cash article for a November 28th town meeting, they will do their best to expedite that and get it certified. So yeah, it's a dilemma. I understand your concern.
And if
We would have to make a change on the floor to take it from the tax levy if we had, by some reason, we didn't have it. So.
I remember a few years back, and
Is the
maybe
money there?
some of the committee members maybe who've
Money was,
been here.
we have money in the tax levy for the 250.
Committee members who've been here for a while will probably remember this. We were at the high school having a meeting right before town meeting, and there was a discussion about spending some dollar amount to do some Munis thing or update some software thing that at that meeting we were told, and I remember this clearly because someone pled the case to me, that if we approve this, we would get our free cash money in October going forward.
I don't know who could have said that. It wasn't me.
They use that to get me to quiet up. So
Well, I remember who pled the case to me. And I know I voted for it specifically because I was told we would get the free cash number in October. And I remember other finance committee members pleading this case to me too, because I was.
Well,
I was-
Mark and I
was
are
a
going
no.
to try to deal with that with the '24 budget, so.
Because,
Stay
and we were
tuned.
getting the free cash in October for some time, and I don't know why now all of a sudden we don't have the free cash number, and then we have to spend the cash to check a box to get the state to get it certified now, because we spent the cash that we didn't have certified. I just think, I agree with the previous speaker.
Should we get our money back on Munis?
I'm just not saying we should get our money back on Munis, we'll never get that back, but I'm just.
Munis is software. You need changes to the systems, and you need additional staffing. And Mark and I are going to deal with that.
I even remember where I was sitting in the room when this vote happened.
Yeah, I don't think it was me. I would
I'll second
never
the
make-
motion if you get the Munis. I'll second your motion.
Yes, Mark, you have a question?
Yes, sir. I forgot my notes at home, and I just remembered this one. Have you looked into any funding for this or anything through the Safe Routes to School?
Safe Routes to School is the funding source for the Central Street improvements, larger scale projects.
This is pretty large. It's going.
It's not compared to that's a $4 million project. So this is a $180,000 project estimated right now. We have an article for $250 because again, we all know the situation in the market right now. This would be a classic one for the shared streets grants. Those have closed. If they open up again, sometimes they just open up. There's no consistent pattern to those grants. We will apply, obviously. But that's the only other one that I'm aware of that this would actually qualify for.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the committee?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to address your comment. I hope it wasn't me that said that, because I generally don't make guarantee. I never make guarantees. I've learned in 20 years here, you don't guarantee anything. You say maybe. So I couldn't guarantee that, but we need to make some changes in systems, and we need additional staffing in the finance departments. Hopefully, you'll be able to support us with that. I know. My
Well, that's what we did in that vote, when that vote happened.
My wife worked for a state authority, and they had a smaller budget than we did, and they had an 8-person accounting staff. Now, I'm not looking for 8 people. But, that was an organization that took the finances seriously because they didn't want the state to take them over. So, Mark and I are going to make some changes, especially with the cash receipts. You all voted for a cash receipts point-of-sale system in 2011. It was all set to go. Previous administration killed it. They were determined they were going to go to Munis. So I'm still a little bitter about that. Worked hard on that to get that through town meeting. John, you may remember that article. So, we need some changes in the systems. We got too many manual processes, not enough staff, not enough oversight. So hopefully you'll be able to support us. So.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Any other questions or comments on this? Article 8, Walnut Street traffic safety improvements. I have a couple kind of questions on this. I'm curious, do we have a list of priorities and streets and this sort of thing? And the reason I ask this is because Walnut Street is deserving to have something done, but I look at all the other streets in town that are deserving to have something done too, and I was wondering, is there a list of priorities? Because I drive through town, I see crosswalks not painted, and I see a number of issues around town. We're not going to get into all the specifics because we want to finish this meeting at some point tonight. So do we have a list somewhere that I could find online so I could say, okay, hey, these are the streets going to be going, and I know a select board member has discussed this sort of thing at a meeting, some sort of, I don't want to use the word infrastructure, but I think I just did.
Yep.
Do we have a list of this sort of thing?
Yes, Paul at DPW has that.
Oh, he does?
The pavement management plan, I think you're referring to.
If you want to call it that, yeah.
Yeah.
Is this project on that pavement management plan?
We're not repaving this road, so this wouldn't be on that plan.
Okay. Yeah. Is there a list of priorities on that list?
There's another plan that we have. It's called the Complete Streets Plan. When we became a Complete Streets community in 2016, we have projects that are on that plan. We actually received the grant funding for the sidewalk on the opposite side of Central Street from about a mile long for that. We've actually accomplished a lot of things on the Complete Streets Grant Program, and we're in the process of actually revising that schedule as we speak. It was actually going to be completed by now, but then they took some engineer and put them in a different spot and couldn't get to it, so.
Do we know offhand how many speeding tickets have been written on Walnut Street?
I do not know.
Okay. I didn't know if it was like 7,000 speeding tickets and people still won't slow down or not. So,
I don't know.
Okay. All right. I'm just asking all these questions because it would appear to me that people are speeding on a lot of the streets. People are hit on streets, and then I just was wondering how this street came to the top of the pile, I guess. So I didn't know if it was on some list or something. All right. Any other questions from the committee on Article 8, Walnut Street traffic safety improvements? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public on Article 8, Walnut Street traffic safety improvements? Please step forward and identify yourself for the record.
Mark Semanian, Precinct 1. This is a great program, a good idea. I think all of our streets should be safer, but I do kind of wonder about the chairman's question about how this got a priority, where we've been after Pleasant Street now for 5 years, and they're much the same, both school zones. Walnut's 35 mile an hour, Pleasant Street's 40. 20% of the people break the law on Pleasant Street by 16 to 18 miles an hour. I think it's about the same on Walnut, is it not? Was there an outside agency that assisted you in getting this preliminary plan together, Mark? Through you, Mr. Chair?
Yes, GPI.
GPI. Yeah. Okay, wasn't OCPC?
Actually, OCPC was involved.
They were?
Yeah. Was
that why they were stopped with following through on the Pleasant Street plan by you, or? Because that's what OCPC told me.
Mr. Zemanian, I would never stop them from another project. Yeah.
I'm just telling you what OCPC referred to me when I asked where we were on this.
Find that individual's name out on the side.
I do have that individual's name, yes. So I'd like that answer, by the way. That would be great, because I'm still wondering why a gentleman got run over in February of 21, and it hasn't been addressed, but this got addressed immediately. And as I
find it very odd, though, that you're accusing me of something like this. And
I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm reporting what I was told.
Somebody got hurt. Because because I think anybody who knows me and my integrity in this town is I would never do that.
Oh, Mark, you didn't say anything about the gentleman who got hurt. Select Person McCrisky promised me a phone call immediately. That was a year and a half ago. How will the bikes interact with the bump out that you were speaking of? Because those bicycles will go through a pedestrian lane, is that correct?
There's ramps on the bump out specifically designed for bikes.
Yes, but there's also a crossway over to Pierce Street, right?
The crosswalk is inside of where the ramps are.
So how will the bicycles and the pedestrians interact? That's my question.
As they would if there was no bump out. If
Okay,
bikes are
but
traveling
there's
down,
no crosswalk right now.
If there is a crosswalk.
There is a crosswalk at
there's a
Pierce Street right now?
crosswalk.
Oh, I didn't know that. It's been a while that it's been painted again. But we're creating a situation where you're essentially creating an island where bicycles will pass through. My question is, how are pedestrians going to be kept safe, or how will bikes be warned to slow down when they come to that pedestrian area? And I ask because my bike, well, exceeds 25 miles an hour pretty easily. And that's a downhill slope. So coming down to Pierce Street, it wouldn't be uncommon for me to be able to hit 20, 25 miles an hour. So I'm concerned about, little kids in the crosswalk. A bicycle doesn't have a lot of time to slow down, even with disc brakes. Just trying to figure out how that's going to work. Is there going to be signage warning bicyclists to slow down, or will there be signage warning pedestrians that bikes might be flying through?
Right, so there's advanced warning signage for bicyclists before they hit these ramps.
Excellent. That's good to know. I didn't know
So
that.
would a bicycle, I don't want to interrupt here, but I want to clarify the law. Bicycles have to follow the same speed law? Is that accurate? or no?
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to be.
But the speed is 35 on this street. So.
All right, thank you.
Right now.
I ride it at 35 miles an hour, there's something wrong.
Oh, yeah, you're in trouble if you're at 35 miles an hour. You're getting nervous at 20, or at least if you're intelligent, you are. One last question. The Safer Streets Grant funding system, if it was to reopen, is that a reimbursable situation, or do you have to have plans ahead? In other words, do you have to apply before the money's granted, or can you apply as a reimbursement?
You do have to have the match in hand.
Okay. I look forward to that answer on OCPC, and I'll get you that info. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. We have any other comments, questions or comments from the public on Article 8, Walnut Street traffic safety improvements? Eric, you have something? Okay. Hearing none?
I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Who wants credit on the second?
Second by Dave Lurie.
Dave. Okay. Motion and a second. Close public hearing. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Public hearing's closed. Thank you very much, Mr. Tisdale. Okay. Well, any discussion on any of this stuff? Yes, Dave?
Yeah, is this where I can ask Mr. Rowe questions about the revenue sheet?
If you two could take that outside, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
They got to go lower than the third floor, too.
Okay. Yes, you can ask Mr. Rowe something.
One,
They don't, one,
and it's got to only have one part.
well, all right, so I did some math. I'm just trying to open up my, I have to bring back my stuff. Yeah, thank you. I'm just a little bit confused. So we got Chapter 70, we had a supplement of $4,909,000. The amount on your revenue sheet, it shows between the projected FinCom annual town meeting fiscal '23, net state aid was $16,575,411, but projected now is $20,686,517. I'm sorry, $20,666,517, but there's the delta on that, all right, if I do this right, 517 minus the 16, 575. The delta was different. I guess it's not as bad as I thought. It's about $90,000 different. I thought it was well over 100,000, but that's okay. Then it shows down below a net surplus of $3,260,541. What changed between the annual town meeting and this supplemental in the special town meeting that took away the, if you subtract 4,909,000 from the 3,260,000, what changed, I guess? Because it's different. Something else was impacting the budget or the revenue sheet other than the amount that came in through Chapter 70 state aid, right? Something changed.
Well, you really get so the last column is the special town, is as of now, special town meeting. The third column is the amounts that we estimated for the annual town meeting. So you kind of got to go item by item.
Yeah, I have 740,368. That's the difference between the Chapter 70 state aid and the net surplus you have at the bottom of that revenue sheet. Yeah, the revenue sheet on that main page there.
Yeah, so the state aid, the final state aid is $26,289,912, as opposed to $21,887,978 that we estimated at the annual. And then the charges have gone up. The assessments went up from $5,312,000 to $5,624,623. So.
But that's where you get to the 740,000? Does that get to?
I don't know. I don't know where you're talking about the.
So I'm looking at just Chapter 70 state aid alone. So that's the only thing new that I see. Like you look at annual, the revenue that we were anticipating at the annual. Fast forward to now,
Okay,
the only thing I know that changed was the state aid for Chapter 70. That's the only thing I know.
Okay.
But yet it doesn't show that at the bottom of the sheet.
So,
And Dave, that's the annual sheet that was just passed down to you. That's from March.
So I added in $3 million for an estimate of free cash for this year. That's an estimate that hasn't been certified yet. So that's why we have the surplus of $3,261,000.
So you're just not capturing all of the money because of what you're not certifying fully yet. Is that the 740?
I don't, where's the 740?
Yeah, I'm taking the Chapter 7, so the state aid that came in was $4,909,000. $4,909,000. That's the amount the only number that I know changed.
I don't see that number, Dave.
That's the,
Dave's referring to that as the number that the schools are
the
in their
schools
articles.
picked up for their articles.
$4 million, I don't quite know what you mean.
Picked up. So you went from 21,680,000, is that 887,978 to 26,269,912, right?
Which page are you on?
You have $4 million. You actually show net state aid at almost the same number as the schools used in their articles.
Right.
About $4 million.
Mm-hmm.
But it nets out at the bottom, $3,260,541. So over 740,000 is somehow, it's not, I don't understand where we lost 740. Because you're showing a surplus of 3,200,000, But yeah, in the state aid section, which is the only number I know that changed.
No, he added the 3 million in free cash.
Plus the local receipts went up as well. They went up
So Dave, is
480,000.
this,
I don't, tell me why I'm confused, because that's why I'm confused. The only number that I know,
3 million in free cash.
right.
That's, so there's only a difference of the 260, 541. Up at the top of this sheet, you'll see that he added the 3 million expected in free cash.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's part of the 3,265,41. So it's really 265,41 that's in question.
if you look at the top part, it says net state aid over on the right-hand side, way over, it says 26,666,517, whatever it is, to the left of that. The ATM is, whatever it is, 16 something.
575, 411.
So,
Right.
so where do we lose $700,000?
Because the delta there doesn't equal the net surplus at the bottom of the sheet at 3,200,000. And I don't, the free cash question is just a matter of him saying, I'm only going to.
The surplus at the bottom,
Includes the 3 million.
Yeah, if we had zero free cash, you'd have a surplus of 265.41.
Well, the math makes sense at the top because it says that you're recognizing the $4 million that came in for state aid. You're showing that you're recognizing that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm wondering why at the bottom it's not equal to the amount that changed.
Because
That's all I'm.
also you're subtracting off the STM articles on there too. That's in there too.
Yeah, all the articles are in.
The articles subtract from the revenue
It's
sheet?
down here, I'm looking on the bottom.
Yeah.
I'm saying, that you're, okay.
I'm not happy, we got to change this format. I'm not happy with this.
1 million
Well, you sent it
There is
over,
a simpler
so-
format.
from
It's-
that.
Yeah, I've been looking for a simpler format for years.
Well, I tried, and your predecessor says, no, I like this format, so, you remember that?
I've been saying for years I want certain things on the revenue sheet. So anyway, let's get back on track here to the articles for the special town meeting so we can actually get done what we're supposed to get done. We are definitely going to vote. We've closed the hearing. We're going to get back on track here. And
All right, thank you.
Article 1, anybody want to talk anything about Article 1?
Does everybody have their tablet with them? Because Diane did send the email out. If not, when we go to vote on these, we'll just read the motion so you know what's in there.
Okay.
Read the motion. All right?
Well, I did
So-
have one quick question on that.
Sure.
And Mr. Rowe, you had given us the figure as far as
Bob Desmond. Just want to let you know. Thanks.
You had given us the figure for the article, and I believe you came back with 33200 each year. What was that? How many years did you do that, and for what percentages to get that figure? So the Muddy Pond one, I think, was $5.65 million.
Right.
It was, in the article, I believe, it was 0% interest. So when we asked you how much that was going to be each year, I think you did a calculation, and I wrote it down at 332 each year. So I'm just wondering, is that
2% interest.
2%?
I was told it was 2% for 20 years.
20 years, okay.
That's if we borrow the entire 5,655 from the
Okay.
Clean Water Trust, but apparently I found that since then, we're only going to get about 40% from the Clean Water Trust, so we're going to have to just issue general obligation bonds and those,
Okay.
But, I mean,
Yep, no, I just...
4%, whatever it is,
I
but
was just trying to come up with your figure. I
probably
appreciate
400,000 per year, say.
it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Article 1?
Right. So if nobody has any objections for each of the 8 articles, I'll read the motion that's in the book, and that will be that I'm making that motion. And we'll just need the second. So for Article 1, the motion is that the town move to appropriate the sum of $5,655,000 for the purpose of financing the planning, designing, permitting, and constructing of a new water treatment plant for the Muddy Pond water supply sources required for the treatment of per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, in said water supply sources, and all incidental and related costs, including, without limitation, all costs thereof as defined in Section 1 of Chapter 29C of the general laws. And to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow $5,655,000 and in issue bonds or notes therefore pursuant to Chapter 44 and/or Chapter 29C of the general laws or any other enabling authority, that such bonds or notes shall be general obligations of the town unless the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, determine that they should be issued as limited obligations and may be secured by local system revenues and as defined in Section 1 of Chapter 1 of Chapter 29C, that the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow all or portion of such amount from the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, the trust, established pursuant to Chapter 29C, and in connection therewith to enter into a loan agreement and/or security agreement with the trust, and otherwise to contract with the trust and the Department of Environmental Protection with respect to such loan, and for any federal or state aid available for the project or for the financing thereof, and that the select board or other appropriate local body or official is authorized to enter into a project regulatory agreement with the Department of Environmental Protection, and that the select board is authorized to expend all funds available for the project and to take any other action necessary to carry out the project. And I move that we recommend this article as written in the warrant.
Second that.
A motion and a second.
I'm sorry, I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on recommending Article 1?
I'm going to vote in the affirmative for this, but I wish we would get a price for the additional well, just to see what the difference would be.
All right. Any other discussion? Article 1, recommending it or not recommending? Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous? All right, did everyone vote? 13, there you go. Okay,
Who left?
nobody abstained.
Who left? Oh, just left, okay.
Okay, we're going to move to Article 2, collective bargaining.
So the motion that is in the warrant is that the town vote to approve a collective bargaining agreement between the town and the Stoughton Public Works Association for the period of FY '23 through FY 2025. And I will move that we recommend this article as written in the warrant.
Elliot, you have a second? Motion and a second for Article 2, recommending. Any discussion on this? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstain? No? Okay. Unanimous? Okay. Going to move to Article 3, a supplemental fiscal year 2023 school budget, Chapter 70 state aid, expansion of services to meet the needs of all students, with a focus on low-income English language learners and special education students.
And the proposed motion in the warrant is that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $2,948,500 to supplement the FY23 school budget for the purpose of eliminating student fees for transportation, athletics, and student activities, and increasing athletic opportunities for students grades 6 through 8, as well as hiring needed staff for class size reduction, English language learners, special education, youth at risk, central registration, literacy and math support, full-time paraprofessional support grades K through 2, as well as extended day and summer programming, and that to meet this appropriation, $2,948,500 be raised in the FY23 tax levy. And I will move that we recommend this to town meeting as written in the warrant.
Second.
Who's the second?
Second.
Who was it? Was it you, Mark?
Elliot.
I think, Mark, you spoke first, didn't you? That's what I'm trying to clarify here. Mark will take the second?
Yeah, I heard it first.
He just didn't have that mic close enough, so.
Didn't even have.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on Article 3. Any discussion? Chet, you have something?
I just wanted to make sure I understand this, that the transportation and athletics and music, the parents and the students that already paid for it are going to get refunded?
I'm pretty sure that's what the superintendent said. He said something about anybody who had already paid would get reimbursed.
Okay, immediately or at the end of the year? That's, I mean, when they get the money, they're going to refund it? I wasn't quite clear on that.
Oh, when the reimbursement would occur?
Yes.
I didn't.
And also,
hear
if
that.
they were going to get a refund, I wasn't quite sure about that, but now I know. Thank you.
I heard they would be reimbursed. I don't remember that he said when, though.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm still concerned about the $60 for the students at the high school.
Apparently, somebody presenting it was too. Any other discussion, Dave?
Yeah, thank you, Vaughn. I'm going to be voting in favor of this for all the positive reasons that the school presented on. I'm a little bit frustrated. A previous speaker asked the question about how many FTEs were coming out of this article, and they mentioned orally in front of us 8 to 10 FTEs. You read the article and the motion, it doesn't quantify anything. It just talks about the need for class size reduction, hiring needed, et cetera. Very, very abstract references to increasing the needs of the school system. But I requested information that detailed out exactly what they're talking about. How many FTEs in literacy? How many of them are going to be hired for, special ed, whatever? They do a very detailed budget when they present for the annual, and we're talking about a $4 million increase in their state aid this year, which is going to have a ripple effect over the course of years way out into the future. It just seems reasonable to ask that they break down exactly where they're placing these dollars. They do it already, and it's a reasonable ask from a finance committee. That's the only thing I wanted to comment on.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dave. Any other questions or comments? Any other comments on this? Any other discussion on this, Article 3? We have a motion and a second on the floor.
I think it's
Eric.
worth reminding ourselves that they said that essentially if I understood correctly, these positions already exist and are being covered by ESSER funds, and that they're being essentially transitioned into being covered by these funds. It probably wouldn't be that difficult to look at the current budget and see those funding sources, but I don't know.
That was my understanding, too, that much of this was already being paid for by ESSER, but that was my understanding. Any other discussion on Article 3? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor in recommending?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, unanimous.
Any abstentions?
Okay, Article 4. School safety and security dual entry improvements at the Daw and Gibbons Elementary Schools.
And the motion in the warrant is that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $600,000 for dual entrance security vestibules at the Daw and Gibbons Elementary Schools, including the addition of a wall with entry doors inside the existing lobby, approximately 10 feet inside the existing doors, a security window to be installed into the office wall with a transaction window, cameras installed on the exterior doors and in the vestibule, along with the dual entry buzzer system, and that to meet this appropriation, $600,000 be raised in the FY 2023 tax levy. And I move that we recommend this to town meeting as written in the warrant.
Second.
Who was that?
Was it Eric or was it Adam?
I think it was Elliot.
I believe
Elliot? Elliot's the second, okay.
this time I used the microphone.
Okay, Article 4, any discussion? Joel?
Actually, I have a question for Mr. Anzavino. As the ad hoc historian of how the town works, I guess. When I first started to work on public construction in Stoughton, I was told by a prior town manager that all construction of this type would be handled through the town's procurement office, and that that was how we did the new high school. It's also how we did the library, and it's also how we started to do, and I think we're continuing on with, the new fire station. I'm a little nervous about the fact that the school department, by setting up its own construction wing, is almost like setting precedent. And I'm afraid, or what bothers me, I shouldn't say afraid, is that this is going to continue on. So, John, could I ask, do you remember it this way, that it was supposed to be the town through the procurement office that does these projects, these construction projects?
I seem to have some recollection that that was the direction they had gone.
Right. Now, I know on a prior town manager who's
no longer here,
I have a feeling basically threw up her hands and said, I don't really want to deal with the school department. You guys do whatever you want. I could be wrong, okay? But we have a very large project coming up, and if the school department and the school committee is entirely in charge of that project, and we don't have, as a finance committee, I'm not even sure what we can even say about it. I find it a little disturbing if it goes against what the town bylaws require. Oops.
I think Mr. Rowe is going to chime in here.
For what it's worth, the town manager is the chief procurement officer of both town and schools. The superintendent has authority to procure contracts over $100,000 or less. Town manager has to sign off on contracts over $100,000. So, I mean, there is some oversight, I guess, you might say, but.
Oh, sure.
Well, you know, but, yeah.
If you say so, okay.
But, you know, in order to get the, as far as getting bills paid, they have to, you know, file.
I understand that, and I only bring this up because first of all, I think that the project itself is a worthwhile project, and I think it should go forward. I just wanted to bring it up. If we do not, if this committee doesn't move it forward, I would be very happy to see, for example, the same project at the annual town meeting, in which it said that the procurement for this work would be done through the town's procurement officer in accordance with the town bylaws.
Well, I don't think the motion discusses.
No, it doesn't.
Who's overseeing it, and.
No, it doesn't, but this is what I call the,
Are you going to say the camel thing, the tent, the nose under the tent thing?
No.
Everybody always says that stuff.
No,
Yeah,
no, I
crazy.
just want to bring up my concerns about this. I will vote for it, but reluctantly.
I'm thinking that the high school itself is a much larger project. Actually, I know that. The fire station, you mentioned that, larger project. I don't know the other projects. I'm not sure exactly what the with the process.
Well, let me point out, for example, that at the Wilkins School, they replaced all the windows, and that was done through the procurement office. The, what's the school on West Street?
Wilkins?
Hanson School, thank you, I'm sorry. And it's right down the street from me, I should know it, okay? The Hanson Street, similar thing, an MSBA project was done through the town procurement office. Even the renovation of the bathrooms in the Wilkins School, which wasn't covered by the MSBA, by the way, that was done through the town procurement office to make sure, as it was explained to me, that there's a consistent group within the town that develops and administers these construction and design contracts, and that it's not scattered among different or various departments. That's how it was explained to me. So like I say, I will vote in favor of this, but reluctantly.
Mr. Rowe, did you clarify this, that the town manager has to sign off on this anyway, regardless of
Well, the
who
town manager
wrote the minutes?
signs off on contracts over 100,000, yes. The superintendent's allowed to procure contracts up to 100,000, and then anything over that has to be signed off by the town manager. So that's on file with the State Inspector General's office, so.
That's my understanding that I was told, yeah.
Yeah, but, and the town procurement officer and the facilities manager at the high school, at the school department, they work hand in hand on a lot of stuff, so, you know.
All right. Any other discussion on Article 4? School safety and security dual entry improvements at the Daw and Gibbons Elementary Schools. Well, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Any abstentions?
Any abstentions? Hearing none, unanimous?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'd like to change my vote from aye to abstain. I can't bring myself to vote for this.
Okay. So.
But I'm not going to vote against it.
12-0-1.
Yes, 12-0-1. Okay, Article 5, school safety and security video camera improvements at elementary schools.
And the motion is that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $452,409 for security camera upgrade for grades K through 5 as printed in the warrant, and that to meet this appropriation, $452,409 be raised in the FY 2023 tax levy. And they referenced, as written in the warrant, they reference in the article the way it was written. And I would move that, I'm going to move that we recommend this to town meeting as written in the warrant.
Second.
Bob Desmond.
Bob Desmond, second. Okay, Article 5, any discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Joel?
In this particular article, I recognize the name of the contractor who's on the state bid list. So this is just purely a thing where, as Mr. Rowe points out, it'll be over $100,000, but I'm sure the town manager would sign off on it. So I support this.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on Article 5? Hearing none, motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, unanimous? Okay, Article 6, supplemental fiscal year 2023 departmental budgets.
In the warrant, it is written to refer to town meeting, and I would move that we refer this to town meeting as there was no, I don't want to say no information, that this was for 6, that there were no requests at this time.
That's second.
Eric's the second?
Okay. I wrote DL. Damn it.
Okay, any discussion, Article 6? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous? Article 7, unpaid bills.
On Article 7, the motion is to refer to town meeting. That's what's in the warrant, and I would recommend that we refer this to town meeting as there were no requests at this time.
Elliot, was that you the second? Was it Chet? Elliot, okay. Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion on Article 6? Hearing none. Motion on, Dave, did you have something? Oh, I thought you had your hand up. Oh, sorry about that. Thank you so much, Mark. Article 7, unpaid bills.
Who seconded this?
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna go to, we get done. Elliot seconded that. Yeah. Article 7, unpaid bills. Motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Unanimous? Oh, any abstentions on there? No? Hearing none? Okay. Unanimous. Article 8, Walnut Street traffic safety improvements.
And the proposed motion in the warrant is that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $250,000 to pay for design and construction services associated with the traffic improvements to Walnut Street, and that to meet this appropriation, $250,000 be transferred from free cash. Oh, I hate this one, but I'll make the motion that we recommend this to town meeting as written in the warrant.
Second.
Was that Eric?
That was me.
Yeah.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion on this? Mark?
Yes, my discussion on it, or my thoughts and theories on this one is, where it's a special town meeting, if this is such an urgency and a special thing, how come nothing is being done on the street now, currently? How come no law enforcement, no Jersey barriers, anything is being put in place to alleviate this problem that seems to be an urgent need? And that's really my only thoughts on that.
Okay. Chet, you have something?
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate the questions I had before. Walnut Street's always been a problem. And also, I'd just like to say that if you read the minutes on October 4th and even September and the 18th, there was mention of a study, but the select board did not vote for a study. They voted for traffic to go to Mass DOT for truck exclusion. And if you go online on spec, the minutes aren't up for the 18th, but so I don't know where they're getting this here. I never seen a study get done so fast from the 18th to now. I mean, this is unbelievable. Is this hiding somewhere? And then all of a sudden, like, they just brought it up? I mean, I want Walnut Street to be safe, but, you know, I think that in the interim, I think they should just put those speed, what do you call them, humps, not speed.
I think it was the speed map, mat or whatever they call it.
Yeah, it's like they have on Stockwell Drive, you know, just along, you know. And I think they should start that and see how that works, instead of spending all this money for striping. I mean, yeah, we need crosswalks, yes, you know, but bike lanes, I know we have to have it, but I don't know. I just think we should start out getting something there now to slow it down and see what happens. And like Diane said about the signalization of the 20-mile-an-hour by the school, you know, that shouldn't be that hard to do for Mass DOT. So, I mean, I'm going to vote for it, but these are my concerns. That's all.
All right. Thank you, Chet. Any other, Diane, you have something?
I'm on board with Chet, but I'm going to vote no on this because I think there should not be any bike lanes on this. And I think they can put up the same school signs that they have in front of the Wilkins or the Hanson, which will really slow people down. Then maybe there might be police up there that will do that. There is a school on that street, and there's never been any school signs there. So I'm sure there will be a cost to putting that kind of traffic thing there, but it will be nowhere near $250,000. I hate to say no. Like I said, I work on Walnut Street. I've seen the way the people race up and down that street. Don't think it's fit for bike lanes at this particular time. If they get an exclusion for not having trucks, okay, maybe we can put bike lanes on there, but.
I would just like to know how they, on Chapman Road or Chapman Street off of Central Street, how they got that truck exclusion there. They have barriers up on the top of the street. I don't know if you go down, if you're going towards Brockton, Avon, there's like no trucks, and they have Jersey barriers on both sides of the street so that the trucks can't go down. So I don't know if we could do the same thing up there. Well, we can't, because I don't know how they got that, what they not got from Mass DOT, or if the town did or whatever, I don't know. I don't have the answers for that.
I know residents went to the board to get that done.
Yes, and I know who the residents were.
No, but I mean, but it was the board that had to take that up with whoever to get that exclusion.
Did they have to go through Mass DOT, or was that done through DPW?
No, I mean, they have to get the approval.
Right.
Which I'm assuming it was from District 5, I think we're in, or whatever.
Yeah, the one, yeah.
And,
okay.
But I mean, I know that was through the board and the board had to follow up with the appropriate authorities to get that exclusion. As Mark had said, you have to come up with an alternate route that is reasonable.
Yes, but being a tractor-trailer driver in my past, those streets up there, there's no way you can make a right-hand turn unless you go way out on Prospect Street to go down. And it's so narrow, like, I can't remember the names of the streets going down, but one is Broadway, I believe. Yeah, there's no way you're going to make a turn on that without getting, jammed up. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vaughn. Through you to the previous speaker, I approve this article because of the fact that the merits of this is very strong for getting it fixed, and the timing question. If you go back to the beginning of when some of these members of the select board came in, they come in and they're very, very vocal. They're very, very they take a very, very serious approach to road commissioner, role that they have. And the town manager, in our form of government, they're a strong town manager. They get to pick what are the priorities in the town. And if that town manager listens to the road commissioners and says, we must get after these very serious problem roads. There's lots of accidents. There's lots of people afraid to drive on them, et cetera, et cetera. They get to pick what the priority is. It's not something where it's like, oh, gee, I wonder if, the funding of this is wrong, or, it's really about them setting the priority. But it's been, even though Mark may have had, a short window of time to develop a study, he's had it on his list of things to do from months and months ago. So, they might have taken a vote in October, but the town manager had the privilege of being able to develop whatever it is that they do to operate the roads, including the studies needed to try to fix them. So I don't really see it being kind of like rising to the level of, oh, we need to object or make a stink over, does it have merit based on how much they did in the most recent meeting, because it's been a priority for a very long time. And I do agree with members of the community that are vocal about their roads, and the dangers where their children have to cross roads and do things like that. It was a while back when I was working on my son's project over on Pye Park, and a little girl crossed the street coming home from Hanson School, and she got run over by a truck. Now, right now, the road is beautiful. It's got, it's got traffic lights. It's all synchronized. They narrowed the roads. They put an island in. All these nice, they made it so that it was like a real road, not like some cow pasture that just has cars just randomly driving around. So, so certain roads get attention, but you never really know when they're going to rise up to the level of, this is the next project to do. I think we just have to be grateful that we have one on the warrant, and that's one less project we might have to do down the road, and we then chip away until we get to all of them, I just don't think they take it on as, what's the term, boiling the ocean. They can't boil the ocean and just, do it overnight and have all of them done. So that's my attitude about it, but I'm very sympathetic to anybody who's vocal about the safety of their roads near them.
Any other discussion on Article 8, Walnut Street traffic safety improvements?
I would just comment, Mr. Chairman, that I agree, putting the speed mats down, or whatever they call them, like they have over in Stockwell, is a good idea. Mr. Tisdale did mention that coming in towards the winter, they might try and do some of the barriers and everything to try and simulate the bump outs and so forth. But they're talking about this going from Prospect down to Park Street and becoming 20 miles an hour, which is a much larger stretch of road than just having a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit at the school. That only carries so far on each side of the school zone. So, this is what they've come up with. They're trying to address it fully at this point. I was kind of concerned with bike lanes when you're talking about a road that's, you got too much traffic and you've got looking to get an exemption on the road and everything, but putting bikes in anyway. But with all that said, I think the attempt that they're going through here to improve the safety on the road is well worth it, and I will support the article.
Any other discussion on Article 8? My only concern with the article is the funding. Other than that, myself personally, I'm a little hesitant to vote for something with a funding source we don't have. That's just my view on it. So, but other than that, I think it's a great project. I think it's something that probably needs to be done. I think we should probably redo a lot of streets, though. But my problem is the funding issue. We're funding with something we don't actually have. But anyway, okay. We have any other discussion on this? Okay. Motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
No. How many noes?
2.
3. Put me down to
3.
3. I'm sorry. So
3 noes.
10 yes, 3 no.
Yep. Okay, so that is approved or recommended.
Interesting. Was that you, Eric, that voted no?
Say that?
Was that you that voted no? No.
No, it was you three.
I voted no.
You voted no.
Yeah, I voted no because I'm a little concerned with the funding source. I mean, if we had it certified and we just saw this number 3 million like this afternoon. It's only $250,000, I get it, but I just.
Stack them up like cordwood.
We do stack them up like cordwood, yes. Okay, we have anything else here? Did Chet make a motion to adjourn? Oh, Elliot did it?
I'll second.
Do we have anything else we need to cover? Guess not. Motion on the floor, we get a second. Who got the second?
Me.
Diane? Elliot did the motion to adjourn. Diane, second.
There is actually a small thing to comment on. This is our first meeting that we're actually running the entire warrant, right? We're actually compiling it, doing all the content.
More or less, yeah.
We're just bringing it up because we talked about it, so this is the first, even though it's a baby of the annual.
Yeah, it's like a test run.
Test run.
Motion and a second on the floor to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Anybody abstain from that one?
10:38 Apple time.
Adjourned.